Hi, I'm Lauren Milan, CEO of Digital Undivided. Welcome back. If it is your first time, thank you for joining us for the second edition of our virtual summit, Undivided We Rise. I created this summit to have a destination, a place for us to convene in conversation, to be together in community, to create resources, and to let each of you, as entrepreneurs, as innovators, as game changers, to be able to see our vision as an organization and to know that we are here for you, to support you, to guide you through our data, our research, our programs, our micro investments, and all that we do to catalyze the genius of Black and Latinx women. This is one of the many ways that Digital Undivided can support you on your journey. Whether you are preparing to pivot, wondering if the pivot that you've made is powerful enough, whether you are building your very next startup, or thinking about what it means to fail up. There is a new definition of what failure can do for your journey as an innovator and as a woman seeking to create success, wealth, and economic pathways for the future. As CEO of Digital Undivided, it means so much to me to be able to bring you this programming today. Again, everything from bootstrapping or raising capital for your startup, to programs, to our panel Las Invadoras, where we invite Latinx women to share what it means to be a Latina and an innovator. I'm so excited to be here with you today. We've got some exciting things in store. Please stay with us for this 3-hour experience. We have an exciting announcement. We'll be debuting a very special docu-series that's never been seen before, and also introducing you to a new online destination created specifically for you. Black and Latinx women, we see you, we value you. Thank you for being here with me and us today as we continue to push the global shift towards inclusive innovation and catalyzing the genius of Black and Latinx women everywhere. Stay tuned. I am so excited to introduce you to our very first panel conversation, Money Talks, where we have invited funders and founders to come together to talk about the allure of fundraising. Is it all that it's cracked up to be? Is it all that you think it is as the end-all be-all for the future of your business? Maybe not. Let's explore the various ways that you can grow your business and get off the ground and running, and all of the funding sources that can support your vision to do so. So I'm so excited to be able to introduce Olamide Olowe, the co-founder and CEO of Topicals. What an incredible story as the youngest woman of color to raise more than $2 million for her business. I'm also excited to introduce to you Bianca Caban, Head of Partnerships at Republic. She was also at SheWorks, which now has been acquired by Republic. And also in conversation with them is Ariane Simone of the Fearless Fund, moderated by Ruth Uma, Diversity Inclusion Reporter of Forbes. We have an incredible panel that is going to give a lot of insight to the various ways that money can help you grow, but most importantly, the various ways that you can get that capital in your pocket to be able to build your business.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's discussion where we'll candidly explore what it takes to fund a business. We'll be looking at the options, benefits, challenges, and processes of a startup funding. Thank you so much to my esteemed panelists for joining me here this afternoon, depending on where you are. Before we begin, I'd love for you all to please take a moment to tell us about your superpowers. More importantly, what do you currently do, and why is it so important for the Black and Latinx founders who are joining us today virtually?
I'll jump in. Is it anybody to jump in? Oh, okay. I'm Ariane Simone, general partner and co-founder here at the Fearless Fund, and I'm delighted to be speaking on this subject. At the Fearless Fund here, we invest in women of color businesses at a pre-seed, seed, and Series A level. So this topic is, of course, very near and dear to my heart. I got into this space actually to solve a problem I was having myself. I was raising capital as a college student at Florida University when I was 21 for my mall-based retail store. And I told myself then that one day I was going to be the business investor that I was looking for. So speaking to Black and Latinx founders as far as raising capital and the discussion of money, I think it is very important. Right now, we know that women of color receive less than 1% of venture funds, but yet that we are the most founding demographic. We're just yet the least funded. So this discussion is very near and dear to my heart, and it's very important that women of color, Black and Latinx, are tuned into this.
Hi, I'm Olamide Aloe. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Topicals. We are a medicated skincare brand for chronic skin conditions, starting with eczema and hyperpigmentation. I'm really excited to be here too, to be representing for college-aged women or younger women who have a dream and have an idea and want to go after venture funding or want to build a really large business. I, myself and my co-founder, raised $2.6 million to date for our startup. We just launched about 6 weeks ago, and we're really excited to continue serving our community, which is largely women of color.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bianca Caban, and I lead partnerships at Republic, which is an equity crowdfunding platform that spun out of AngelList in 2016 when regulation crowdfunding was passed by the SEC, which basically allows everyone, regardless of their net worth or accreditation status, to invest in startups online. And I think what's exciting about this opportunity and sort of my superpower within Republic is enabling founders, regardless of where they are, as long as they have an internet connection, to apply to this platform and access capital from their friends and family, regardless of their net worth. So they no longer have to be accredited anymore to back and seed the founders they believe in, as well as to raise capital from their most loyal and engaged customers or users. And so essentially this opens up the opportunity for founders, especially underrepresented founders, Black and Latinx founders, to leverage the power of their community to back them. And the reason why this is such a superpower is because, especially for women, data shows that women are very good at storytelling and galvanizing supporters. And so equity crowdfunding is a really powerful way for women of color to do just that, to leverage their ability to rally a community, to inspire, to influence, and to leverage their superpower in doing that to raise capital and receive the funding they need to get to the next stage. So happy to talk more about any of that. But thank you so much, Ruth and Lauren and Ali, for having me. And I'm really honored to be here with Olamide and Ariane.
Likewise, thank you for that. As Ariane noted at the top of this conversation, Black and Brown founders are often undercapitalized and underfunded. And so I think one of the primary questions they ask themselves is whether to fundraise or whether to bootstrap. And it can be a really tough decision to make. As founders yourselves, what questions should you ask yourself, or as a founder, anyone who's a founder, what questions should you ask yourself when deciding whether to seek outside investment or bootstrap?
That's an amazing question. I think why I'm so excited about this question is I think in communities of color, we haven't seen exits or we haven't seen large acquisitions in the same way maybe other communities have seen. And so I think the number one question you have to ask yourself when you're trying to figure out whether you want to fundraise or you want to bootstrap is, are you willing in 5 to 10 years to give up your business and to sell it to a larger conglomerate, or even partner with a larger conglomerate to take your business, maybe from the United States internationally? And I think in our community, we see acquisition and we see selling your company to a larger company as selling out or as, trying to jump ship or get rich. But really every single person who takes funding or who has investors, the exit opportunities is exactly what your investor is looking for. So when they put money in, they only make money out when you sell the company. And so I really hope conversations like this can help us really open our minds around acquisition, that it's not someone selling out and it's not someone wanting to be a part of the mass. It's really that the next step of your journey as a founder is to grow the business, not just in the United States, but let's say for myself, I'm Nigerian. I'd love for my products to be retailed in Nigeria, and currently my business cannot do that. And so in order for us to do that, we may have to partner with a larger business like a Unilever or a L'Oreal. And I really, really hope that as Black and Brown founders, we really start to understand that we should see acquisition as success and not as someone selling out. But I think the main question you have to ask yourself is, are you ready to lead an organization that has to one day either be acquired or, go public on the public stock exchange?
Ariane, I think you're muted.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I was saying she's telling the truth, because that stigma in our community, it needs to be just demolished. It really does. And I say that because so often, and I hate when people romanticize about the business too much to where they're just so in love with it. But I'm like, at the end of the day, are you in love with this $10 million revenue business that you can't even cut a $10,000 check for, whereas you had a $40 million exit and acquisition for this business? You're now in position as a person of color in your community to go and start another business and just do so much more. So that's one reason why I'm like, we've got to quit playing in this space of kind of just being so romanticizing about it. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some businesses that will be legacy businesses, but at the end of the day, capital and cash is king. And what's going to put you in a better financial place for your community, whether you're running that business or having an exit that's put you in a better position. You get what I'm saying? So we just have to be mindful of what that end looks like and how much more impact you can have with the greater. In addition to that, when we're having the discussion about fundraising versus bootstrapping, I've been in both cases. I mentioned I got into this space to be a solution to my problem. So in college, I was raising. Now, after college, I built a company completely bootstrapped from the ground up in the PR and marketing industry. I will say this, that some businesses, if it's service-based or not tech-enabled or things of that sort, like to me, for when I built the PR and marketing business, going to seek out capital probably wouldn't have been the quickest way to build that business. Bootstrapping probably was the quickest way, whether I was looking at the lack of access to capital in the space or not. Just that kind of business that just made more sense. And if that kind of business ever got in like a rut, debt-based financing probably would have been the better situation for that case, not necessarily venture. So you just have to be mindful of what your business model is and what you need to support it in order to scale and grow at a rapid rate.
Great.
I would just
Bianca, very quickly, before you chime in here, someone in the chat, one of your attendees asked, what does bootstrapping mean? So could you same level playing field before you delve in, explain the difference between bootstrapping and fundraising?
Absolutely. I was just going to do just that because I think that my other panelists explained, I think, the other context in terms of why would you do either perfectly, but just to kind of level set on the definitions. So what bootstrapping is essentially it's growing your business without taking an outside investment, whether that be equity or debt. And so it means taking the revenues that you're making from selling your product or service and reinvesting that back into the business to fund your growth. So that's what bootstrapping means. Basically, you're growing from for your own sales, your own profits, and you're not taking an outside capital to leverage your business or fuel your growth, whichever one. So in terms of when you would raise capital, in terms of, I think Ariane was talking about sort of debt versus equity a little bit. In terms of taking on outside capital in the form of equity and sort of venture capital, what we know that to be, I think, I've talked to a lot of investors, and the consideration is really around sort of taking on outside capital, especially equity, is really what it means is that you expect to have an outsized exit. And so you really want to take and that might not be the case for your business, meaning you might want to have a business that's kind of steady, has steady cash flow month over month, that's sort of, kind of chugging along, and you're happy with that, and that those are more called kind of lifestyle businesses. But if you want to have, if you plan to have an exit, that's where you could potentially think about taking on equity capital, because that's really what venture capitalists are looking for. They're looking to have to invest and earn, at least, when they say unicorns, it's like 100x on their capital, but really at least 10x on their capital. So, and by the way, in a short period of time, only 5 to 7 years, that's really not a long time. So as a founder, you have to say, do I expect this? Do I expect to sell to a Unilever in 5 to 7 years, or do I want to IPO in 10 years? And that's just about your own personal motivations. It's totally up to you. If you have a business that's, again, throwing off a lot of cash month over month, and it's a really healthy business, and you just want that to kind of chug along, and you're happy with that lifestyle that it provides you, then you should continue bootstrapping. If you want to scale it and reach, millions of people, and that kind of thing, then you would probably want to take on venture capital. And then when Ariane was talking about debt, one thing to consider with debt is it's a great way to get funds you need to grow your business and take on a bit of risk, but at the same time, not give up any ownership. But you have to have cash, your business has to be cash flowing, because you're going to need to pay the interest and the debt. So oftentimes with venture, a lot of founders who maybe are experiencing rapid user growth, but maybe they're pre-revenue, that's actually more well-suited for equity financing, because you're not quite monetizing yet, but you expect to, because you're growing very quickly in terms of your user base. But for debt, you really do need to have some revenues to show in order to even qualify for getting debt, to be able to do that. And so the consideration between debt and equity is kind of, do I want to give up ownership or not? Am I cash flowing or not? And the consideration between bootstrapping and raising capital, equity capital, is, how fast do I want to grow? And once I get that venture capital, the pressure's on. So oftentimes I'll talk to venture capitalists and they'll say to me, we tell founders to bootstrap. If you're post revenue, bootstrap as long as possible before taking on equity, because then the pressure is really on to really start working on that rapid growth and that exit in 5 to 7 years.
Very well said, Bianca, and really all of you. Olamide, my next question is going to be directed toward you. You are the youngest Black woman to raise over $2 million in venture capital, which is an astounding feat in and of itself. How did you know you wanted to fundraise with your company Topicals, and how did you get such heavy hitters to support your business financially?
I really appreciate that. I really do. But I hope that I'm not the youngest one after, this presentation, and after, we all do our part to get more women, especially Black women, on board. Because I think Ariane said it really well. When you sell your business, you should sell it so that you can reinvest back in the community, and so that you can create 10 businesses like your own. We have that responsibility, I think, as Black and Brown founders, to reinvest the money we get from acquisition or from partnerships with larger incumbents, to make sure that we have now 10 topicals, or I used to work at Shea Moisture, so 10 Shea Moistures, or 10 10 fearless funds, like creating more access for more capital. But for me, I think fundraising was an interesting journey. I think I decided that fundraising was right for me, out of what I had seen in the past with other companies I had worked with, and the kind of business I thought that I could build. For us at Topicals, we really want to serve the customer in the chronic skincare space who has not been served in over 30 years. And so we knew, one, that in order to do that, we were going to have game-changing products, and game-changing products cost a lot of money. It's not something that you can just make in your kitchen, which we would have loved to do that, because then it would have been a lot cheaper to start. But we needed to have labs, we needed to have dermatologists on board with us to really understand skin of color, for example, because we really focus in on making sure that our products are safe and tested for skin of color. And so a lot of that cost a lot of money. And so when we realized that early on, we knew that we wanted to get investors on board who were going to support our vision. I think Bianca made a really good point that when you take venture capital, depending on who you take it from, that the clock starts ticking of how quickly can this business grow super fast. I'm very fortunate that a lot of my investors are Black women and women generally, and the other investors who are very supportive of us growing this business sustainably and not just growing crazy and wild, because we want topicals to be around for 30, 40, 50 years. And so if we build it too fast and we break it in the process, that also isn't good. And so we're really proud to have Issa Rae on our cap table, Yvonne Orji, Hannah Bronfman, Bozma St. John. And I think I'm very, very blessed and fortunate that I was in a position where a lot of investors wanted to get in on investing in our business. But I actually made it a mandate with our lead investor that if we didn't have Black women, a sizable chunk of them in the round, then I really didn't want to do a deal with anyone who couldn't put me in front of the right kind of people to get that done. And I'm so excited that we were able to do that, and really fortunate again and blessed that our company was in the position that a lot of people wanted to get in on the round, and we were really able to be picky about who we wanted.
That's fantastic. Definitely a lot of change agents who are working with your team. Bianca, this next question is for you. I apologize, I'm treating you like Merriam-Webster here, but someone asked for more clarity around what equity capital is, and then I'll answer the question that I have for you.
Sure. So equity capital is where you are soliciting investment in your business, and in exchange, you're giving away ownership in your business. And so for the person that asked the question, very similar to the stock market, where anyone right now can go, through their 401k or through Fidelity, through a broker like Fidelity, can go and invest in PepsiCo. And when you buy PepsiCo stock, you're basically buying a percent ownership in PepsiCo on the public markets. And so in terms of what we're talking about in venture capital, it's basically it's a form of private equity where it's not done, on the public markets. It's all done privately. And traditionally, venture capital is a small segment within private equity that was really only open to the top, not even 1%, a fraction of the 1% were able to invest in these private companies at the earliest stages. And now I guess this is going into perhaps what you'll ask about, Ruth, but with the sort of advent of platforms like Republic and some of our friendly competitors, WeFunder, Seed Invest, now you're able, the everyday person who has access to investing in public stock markets can now invest in private companies through compliant platforms like Republic. We are SEC regulated and FINRA licensed. And so on Republic, when you're backing a founder, when you're investing $10 or $50 or $100 or whatever you're comfortable with, you're actually, in exchange for that money, you're getting a small ownership in that company. And so the idea is that if and when hopefully that company has a liquidity event, whether it be an acquisition or an IPO, your ownership stake that you invested in and bought back then will be worth more than what the money you put in. So that, and then you'll earn a return on that investment, hopefully. And we like to caveat that investing in early stage companies is the riskiest form of investment that you can make. And likely you can lose your money investing in early stage companies. But if you invest in, if you dedicate, whatever you're comfortable with every year to investing in this asset class, it's a great way to diversify your investment holdings. And if you're investing in multiple early stage companies, let's say 10, that increases your probability that one of them will be successful and you can earn a return on that. So I hope that was clear. I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions.
It certainly did, and you kind of dovetailed into my question, which is, what are the advantages of crowdfunding, especially doing it on a platform like Republic?
Sure. So I think I alluded to this a little bit, but the advantages of equity crowdfunding are never before could you have non-accredited investors in your round. So Olamide just closed her round. All those investors or probably the bulk of them were accredited investors. And what accreditation means is it's basically a regulation that the SEC has where it basically means that you have a net worth of at least $1 million, or that you've earned in your household a joint income of at least, I think, 300K for 3 consecutive years. And so that definition is, quite limiting in terms of who can access investing in private companies. Whereas now with platforms like Republic, you do not have to be accredited to invest. So anyone can invest. There are limitations and it's all self-reported. So I believe you can invest, and I can get clarity on this, but it's no more than $10,000 annually, or 5 to 10% of your income, whichever is greater. So there are, limitations to protect the everyday kind of retail investor in terms of this new asset class. Because again, investing in early stage companies is very risky, and likely you'll lose your investment. But again, if you invest in a diverse portfolio of early stage companies, then you're increasing your probability of success. And so Republic is exciting because founders can now allow their customers to invest in them in exchange for ownership. And what that does is it creates an incredibly loyal customer base at the early stages of your company that will be so excited about investing in you because they feel a stake in your journey because they actually are owners. And so it's really powerful. So imagine if, Uber could have allowed their early users or their drivers to invest in their early rounds. That could have created even more stickiness early on in their marketplace because those early users and drivers would have felt a stake in their success and would have, potentially not gone to other platforms because they were, sort of owners in Uber. Republic wasn't around when Uber was raising early days. This is just an example. But imagine that as a founder, if you have a really engaged customer base and you're allowing that customer base to invest in you, it can be pretty powerful for you because you now have a supercharged and loyal customer base. You have future product testers. You can go to your equity crowdfunding investors and say, hey, we're testing out new features. Will you help us test this out? And they're kind of, they're sort of, insiders now in some ways because they're owners in your company. So it's a really powerful new opportunity that just never existed before.
Question for you here, Arian. Not only have you bootstrapped your business, but you are also the co-founder of your own fund dedicated to investing in women of color-led business, the Fearless Fund. What are some of the challenges you're hoping to solve by financially backing businesses through a fund?
Definitely, one, offering women of color the opportunity to definitely pitch in front of somebody who looks like them. So she was very blessed in her situation to have a cap table like that. When we're on the cap table, we're usually the only women, and sometimes we may be the only women of color, and that's very important because what she did strategically, without even disclosing this to you all, it's addressing the wealth gap. At the end, when she goes to exit, she has now empowered other women of color to become basically richer than they were before. And you want to make sure that you do have women of color on the cap table because it helps out with the wealth gap. So that's first and foremost. That's something we're definitely mindful of when we invest. We even tell the people we invest with that, hey, who else are you looking to put in your round? Because we have some suggestions. Even some of the investors who she mentioned, we're on cap tables with them as well, too. So you want to make sure that that's something that you're looking out for because the wealth gap is real. Right now, as far as I know, the Black family is concerned, our net worth is at $17,000, and it's on trend to be at zero by 2053 if we don't get a hold of this. And part of that is because the tech industry is the largest wealth producing industry right now in the world, which of course, it's definitely venture backed. And if we don't play a part in it, that gap will continue to grow and grow and grow. So that's one thing we're definitely looking to help solve in the space that we're in. We're also more so strategic partners. So when we're talking about from equity to debt to bootstrapping and different ways to grow your company, they're not just selling equity in their business. You're also basically buying a strategic partner at the same time. This person has their own set of resources. We have our own set of reach. We have a lot of celebrities even that are investors within our fund, from Marseille Martin to one of my co-founders, Keisha Knight Pulliam, to Dr. Jackie. She's actually my actual doctor, but she also plays on Married to Medicine, to Marie Forleo. We have plenty of like celebrity investors that are even in our fund, which gives us a lot of access to even take a company per se to market and make it on our own. So there are definitely strategic alliances and advantages that we do have currently at our fund. But yeah, you're getting a strategic partner. We pair our founders up with corporate partners because we are looking at their exit. So I do want to say this for a disclaimer, because I don't want everybody to think that venture capitalists are just pressing you to exit quickly. Our founders enjoy us. They feel like they have that same freedom to grow. But the reason why this happens is because a fund cycle is 10 years. So when Bianca's talking about they're looking for you to exit, in 5 to 7 years, it's because legally how funds are structured, which is that's why I said some people are a fit for venture, some people are a fit to stay bootstrapping, and some people are a fit to go get some debt-based financing. So you want to make sure that you fall in alignment with whatever that mission is for who you're looking for funding from. But yes, those are just a few things that we're looking to solve in this space. I feel the same sentiments as the other panelists. We're the first fund that's built by us for us. We are not looking to be the last. We are the first by default. We got into this space to solve a problem. We didn't know we were the first till the media told us, okay? I was like, whoa, we need other people to come on board. So I am charging Olamide when she exits her company that she also starts a fund too for women of color to come right behind us saying, hey, I'm now a funder and a founder, and I got more businesses and I got an investment fund going on. But we need to build a whole culture of that. One thing I can say, and this is, I want to say it probably as modest as I probably can, but because we are somewhat pop culture trendy, those of us at our fund, it's creating an environment and a revolution of a new class of investors. And that is something that we have to have. There are not just a lack of diverse investments, it's because there's also a lack of diverse investors. So by us being in this space, it's causing somewhat of a pop culture movement to get more people on board. So I'm sorry, Ruth, if I gave you like a whole run on, but
no, that was fantastic and such a comprehensive overview. I was, emphatically nodding my head as you were speaking. We unfortunately have run out of time. I see a number of questions are populating on the side. Thank you so much, however, to my esteemed panelists again for offering such a wealth of knowledge. Very quickly, if someone wants to get in contact with you, can each of you very quickly share your Twitter accounts?
Yeah, my Twitter account is my first name, Olamide, the letter A, which is my middle name, and Aloe, my last name. So first name, letter A, last name. It should be listed here right next to topicals.
Okay.
My Twitter account is at Arian Simone, and all my social media is at Arian Simone, and the fund is at fearless.fund.
Great.
Find me at Bianca_Caban.
Great. Thank you again, ladies. Such a pleasure chatting with you this afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. This was amazing.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
everybody. My name is Christina Brown, and I'm the Director of Communications here at Digital Undivided. I'm so excited to see you guys here for our second Undivided We Rise virtual summit. These conversations are so important because we can only grow when we share and tell our stories. And as the Director of Communications, it's my charge to make sure the stories of the diverse founders we support here are told, and that as an organization, we're constantly building community among women just like you. That's why I'm so excited to announce the launch of Digital Undivided's Genius Lab. The Digital Undivided Genius Lab is a private membership hub where you'll have access to our digital events archive, exclusive content, resources for your business, and a user-friendly space to propel you and your business forward. We are currently offering 1 month free to introduce you to our platform when you join before October 25th. Please visit digitalundivided.com/Genius Lab to learn more and to become a member today. All right, so let's get straight into our next panel discussion, which is Big Ideas, Bigger Connections, the Power of Programs. So being a female founder of color is a really unique journey that many cannot relate to. Startup founder-focused programs like accelerators and incubators help founders with big ideas become change agents to society. So this next panel is going to dive deep into understanding the who, the what, and the why of accelerator and incubator programs for startup founders. So we have a panel of amazing experts in entrepreneurship programs, particularly as it relates to Black and Latinx female founders. They're going to provide their expertise and pretty much help you decide if programs are right for you. So I'll get into who we have slated up to speak. First, we have Kate U. McCrary, Director of Programs at Digital Undivided. Originally hailing from New Orleans, Kate is our new Director of Programs at Digital Undivided. She's committed to driving change and solving big, complex problems through entrepreneurship. Kate has led projects at Echoing Green, USAID, and UNICEF. She served as an Assistant Professor of Entrepreneurship and an Interim Director for the Center for Entrepreneurship and Community Development at Loyola University in New Orleans, and also became the first Global Communications Director for Village Capital, a DC-based impact investment fund and global accelerator. Kate received her BA from Wesleyan University and graduated from Columbia with an MA in International Educational Development, and we're excited to have Kate moderate this conversation with these three panelists. Andrea Perdermo, Network Catalyst, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Techstars. She, before joining Techstars, was the co-founder and CMO at Revelar, a 2015 and 2016 Techstars company. While at Revelar, Andrea built a full-stack team of hardware, software, sales, and operations members that successfully launched 2 hardware products and sold over 20,000 units in 16 months. Andrea is a graduate of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and her current role at Techstars is to plan, coordinate, and ignite diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives across the Techstars network and entrepreneurial ecosystem. I'm very excited to hear from Andrea. Then we have Kezia Williams, the CEO of the Black Upstart. Kezia is the CEO of Black Upstart, a nationally recognized company serving African American innovators interested in starting successful and profitable job-creating small businesses. Kezia also leads Skill House U, an online educational school that teaches financial literacy. She's been featured in CNN, Forbes, USA Today, Black Enterprise, and so many more. We're super excited to have Kezia on here. And then we have B. Law, founder and CEO of Quirktastic. B. Law is a former cytogenetic scientist turned entrepreneur. Cytogenetic. She's the founder and CEO of Quirktastic, a group, live streaming, and networking platform for geeks and gamers. Since launching her company, she's helped grow Quirktastic to 200,000 online followers, and the app has amassed 50,000 users since its March 2019 beta launch. Crazy. Quirktastic has been featured in Essence, TechCrunch, and has been named by Forbes as the home for geeks. Law was also an entrepreneur in residence at Digital Undivided, the incubator for Black and Latinx women, and participated in the second cohort of Snap Inc.'s Yellow Accelerator. We are so excited to have these amazing panelists. Please join me in welcoming the Power of Programs panel.
Hey, y'all.
Hi.
Hello.
All right. So first things first, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
All right, perfect. So thank you so much for being on this panel this lovely Friday afternoon. Instead of asking you a very generic, how are you feeling? I'm going to ask y'all something that we do in our programs for our start cohorts. If you would go around and do a one-word emotional check-in, how are you feeling in one word? B, do you want to kick it off? B, I can't hear you. Nope. All right. So until B gets some things figured out, let's go for Kezia because I can definitely hear you.
Okay. Oh, one word. Like I have like 5 words coming to mind all at once. Since it's Friday, I'm gonna say relieved.
That's a good one. I like that. All right, Andrea.
Yeah, I know one word is tough. There's a few words, but I am personally feeling pretty joyful, maybe because it is Friday going into the weekend, and on Tuesday I thought it was Friday, so I'm just excited it's finally here.
Awesome. B, can you try again? Nope. All right, so Bee's a tech whiz, so I'm sure that her tech will be up and running soon. All right, so again, thank you for being on the panel. We at Digital Undivided really are huge fans of real talk, right? So here's a question for both of y'all and Bee when she returns. In terms of programs, do you think that they're a requirement to be a successful startup founder? And what are some of the benefits and what are some of the challenges? I'll let either one of y'all take that.
I am super happy to go first. Yes. So I do not think that programs are a requirement for organizations to be successful. I think for a wide variety of reasons, and just so everybody on the call knows, so I work for Techstars. We're definitely a big accelerator program. We run about 50 programs a year, and yeah, I think part of the pros is that you do get connected to a network, you get education, you get mentorship, right? You get access to capital in many cases. But I don't think that it's necessarily a requirement. I think there's other ways to go about getting some of those pieces that you need. And yeah, it just really depends on what kind of organization you're trying to build and how quickly you're trying to scale. And there's a lot of different variables that I think position people in a place to do an accelerator or not. And I think there's a lot of great resources out there that exist that are really available to everyone to kind of make their own path of success.
Yeah,
All right, Kezia.
just to build upon what Andrea said, at first I misunderstood your question. I thought you had asked, was there any prerequisites to becoming an entrepreneur? And I was about to preach on y'all. For programs, no, there is absolutely no requirement that you go through a program in order to be a founder, in order to be an entrepreneur. I think that a program helps better equip you to go into a space where faith becomes your foundation. And we may not know what faith is, but faith being the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not yet seen. Entrepreneurs especially are people that must foundation themselves with that concept, because what you're doing is you're birthing things that have not yet materialized. And so you're walking around telling people about this idea as an isolated individual. You're communicating with vision. They're only seeing it with eyesight. So people are calling you crazy. Like, what is this great idea that you have that isn't yet physical? And so when you find programs, I think programs, one, help you find community. I think that entrepreneurship is a special type of language that only other entrepreneurs understand and speak fluently. I think that programs provide you with structure.
It allows you to really think through what are the proper steps for entrepreneurship. And though the pathway can be circuitous at times, we know that, again, having that program, having that tribe, and having people who've already blazed that trail prior to you can help equip you. And then finally, I think that it's important for you to join a program or find a program that is able to really relate to where you are. Black Upstart specifically trains Black entrepreneurs, and we're unapologetic when we say that we train Black entrepreneurs, because we do believe that starting a Black-owned business is fundamentally different than just starting a business. I think with Black entrepreneurs specifically, we've been taught that the prototype of success is a white male who already has resources, but we know that Black entrepreneurs specifically have a different trail, have a different path, have a different journey, but it doesn't necessarily have to be an obstacle. That if you can address race and call it out specifically, that you can turn the what is perceived to be the obstacle of race into a profitable opportunity.
All right. Andrea or B, do you want to comment on that? Or piggyback off that? No. All right, Andrea, it might be yours then.
I'm like, B, message me and I'll speak for you. Yeah, no, I completely, and I'm so excited to just be a part of this, because I think specifically, right, like when we talk about programs that exist, and I think Techstars is a perfect example of this, like we have a lot of work to do on making sure that we are actually being very inclusive, but even more so than that, right, like how can we do a better job? Like I personally went through a Techstars accelerator, actually first female-led company to do two, so really proud of that accomplishment. And you know, looking back, like we definitely did learn a lot through the program, but it was challenging to look around the room and realize that we were in many cases the only Latinx that were in the room, and then we were also really young, starting a hardware company. So you know, outside of Techstars, we were being told that we had no business being in tech, and that you know, I really just wanted to meet someone like you because I've never met anybody like you, and it was really, you know, for me, it really kind of pushed me personally to figure out, well, how do I prove all these people wrong? And I was able to find great mentorship, great allies, not just at Techstars, but other programs that we had done before. And it really kind of gave us, at least personally, the confidence to walk into those investor rooms, to walk into certain places and prove to people that even though we didn't look like your traditional, you know, tech startup founder, that we were just as capable, if not more capable, to do more and to be successful. And I think, one other thing I think about all the time is how we define success is unfortunately different when you look at different programs. And so I think we need to also align around what that really means. And, you know, for you to grow a company sustainably and slowly is also success in my mind. And so I just want to be mindful of that, because we've kind of done that within the tech industry, and we need to be really careful of what we mean by that.
Definitely.
We can hear you, B. Yay.
Perfect. There we go. Just a little jigging around. Awesome. So I believe the question was the importance of programs, correct? So a little bit about my background that kind of leads into the importance for me. Before starting my company, I actually worked in science. So I worked in a lab, had no idea what a seed round was to a Series A or B. So I actually went through the Digital Undivided programs, and those not only gave me like what I needed to know about just growing a business, but it also gave me the confidence to know what I didn't know. You know, like I feel like a lot of people, especially if you don't have an MBA, you didn't go to Harvard Business School, you kind of feel like, oh, like people know something that I don't. It kind of showed me like, one, we're all kind of figuring this out together, but two, it actually gave me a lot of the terminology that made me feel very comfortable going into these rooms and talking to investors. So also with that, I still have a few friends from that program that I still talk to every single day. And I think especially with things going on in the media right now, we had the verdict with Breonna Taylor, having Black women and Latinx women to just slump your shoulders to I think it's not something that people talk about enough in programs. I've been in majority white programs. I also did the Snapchat accelerator with Yellow. And it's just a completely different experience when you have women who look like you, to where it's like, you can just give them a look and they're just like, I know, sis. And that's all I need sometimes.
Yeah, so I mean, what I'm hearing, and something that we all see every single day, is a lot of these discussions revolve around an invisible power dynamic, right? Which is, I think, very interesting for this panel in particular, because we are entrepreneurs, women of color, and yet all of us ended up on the program side, right? You were our entrepreneur in residence as well as a facilitator for our programs. And so how have your experiences as a woman founder of color informed how you run programs and how you continue forward with those?
Yeah, so with me, as you mentioned, Kate, right after I finished the program with Digital Undivided, I ended up being selected as an entrepreneur in residence for a year, which was an awesome experience. I was able to mentor the women of the program. But then most recently, I also came back as a facilitator for the newest programs teaching the business model Canvas. And I think the most important parts of it, one is just like the office hours, being able to talk to people outside of the regular scheduled programs. I think that's something that I make sure that I make enough time for, because I know that not everybody's confident enough to ask the questions that they want to in front of the large group. And I don't know if that's something that happens with like women in general, to where we want to look like we're always put together. But I go into my office hours like, hey, no question is a stupid question. Ask me anything. I'll tell you what I know. If I don't know something, I can always ask someone else. And those have just been the moments that I've cherished at building programs, just coming in, just open-minded and allowing people to just be real with me.
Yeah, I'll jump in after B. That look is real.
Yes.
When you can give somebody that look and they look back.
Exactly.
To really see what has been internalized. I think what is even more empowering is being able to follow up that look with a conversation where you can be transparent, and in that transparency, find yourself in a safe space. And I think that that's what programs like the one that you spoke of represent, right? Is an opportunity for us to be unapologetically ourselves. I was watching Lovecraft Country, which is one of my favorite shows, last weekend. And one of the things that one of the characters said was, I don't have a problem being Black. I don't have a problem being a woman. Society has that problem. And all I really want to do is live life uninterrupted. And I threw my shoe.
I know. Life
if I had another suit in your ears, I would do everything, because I think as entrepreneurs, that's what we really want to do. We want to start our business uninterrupted. We want to raise our capital uninterrupted. We want to be able to serve our customers uninterrupted. And you mentioned Breonna Taylor. With Breonna Taylor, she was trying to live life uninterrupted in her own home. And so I wanted to further affirm what you said about that look, but also preference it, or further platform it. That's my word for today, with the conversation and the safe space. I did not start my journey wanting to be an entrepreneur. Like many of you all, I wanted to be a successful employee within a corporate environment. I was taught that the definition of success is to get a high school diploma, a college degree, get a good government job, and go to work for 30 years and get some really great benefits and a wonderful retirement package. But working while Black, what I understood almost immediately was that my labor was undervalued. It was underappreciated. Many times I was asked to assimilate into an unfriendly space, and at a separate but unequal pay. And I had to ask myself, was that a life that I wanted to subject myself to for the next 30 years? And with statistics coming out specifically about Black women, that we will lose $840,000 over our working career, I had to ask myself, well, I'll continue to let the hand feed me that doesn't feed me properly or even provide me a full course meal. So if I am capable, right, why not provide the appetizer, the full course meal, the dessert, and prepare a table and feed my family and my community? So when I think about Black Upstart and why I started Black Upstart, I started it for Black people like me who needed this safe space, who needed to be able to look across the room and needed an opportunity to monetize their labor in such a way where they could be economically free.
Love that.
Right.
Oh gosh, I want to hang out with you every day. Like so much energy. I love it. Oh my gosh, how do you top that? Follow that? No, I mean it's so interesting to me because I think it sounds like very similar to the both of you. I thought I wanted to be in fashion, and I lived in Milan, and that's what I wanted to do, and work in retail. And I very, very, very quickly kind of jumped into this hardware company that I founded because I saw a bigger need to keep people safe. So I actually created a personal safety device to keep our loved ones safe. And it was really interesting because I stumbled upon that journey. It was nothing that I ever planned for myself. And for me, it was thinking, why is no one else thinking about the safety of the communities that need this product most, right? And that was what I kept kind of going to and we were doing all of this before the Me Too movement happened, which, as you can imagine, was very challenging. But what I started to realize and why I'm in the role that I'm in now at Techstars is we were very, very fortunate, and I would say very, very lucky. And it was actually a privilege of ours to be able to go through a program like Techstars in 2015, which was pretty early. We were one of the first Latino-run companies that were doing hardware. We were it was mind-boggling to me, kind of. Like, I think there was a previous panelist that was saying, like, we didn't know we were some of the first until someone told us.
Yeah.
And it was shocking. I'm like, how have there not been more Latina women, like, fundraising over $1 million from VCs? Like, that was just shocking to me. And so it was after that I kind of left that company and wasn't pretty. We can jump into that if we need to. But that's when I realized, like, I actually want to dedicate my life and my career to figuring out how to really create access, and not just any kind of access, but equitable access, where it's like, you deserve to be here. It's not because you, like, gosh, we don't have enough minority people in our programs. Like, we need to, like, I want to get away from that and really prove to the world that there's so much power in diversity. And I'll kind of read this quote to you because this is one of the things that I read that really inspired me to get into the world that I'm in of, well, how do we tackle this with a large organization that's already been doing this for 13 years? And this just really stood out to me, and it's that the people creating tech have the power to influence how it works, and that is too big a responsibility for any single demographic to have full control. A lack of diverse ideas and representation could lead to further disparities between gender, race, and class. And that's what drives me every day is that. It's like, we need to change that because the whole world is dependent on the technology and the companies that we build. So anyways, I'll pause there, but that's just, I get really passionate about it.
No, that was good.
Love it.
Yeah, I love it too.
Yeah, I love it. Keep it coming. And, thank you so much for sharing, all three of y'all, that. I think that one of the things that often enhances a perceived power dynamic is even the folks behind creating the programs, right, are often seen upon this pedestal. And, I think it's important for all founders to know that, we're human too, and we have our own stories. And a lot of us do come at this from a place of passion and wanting to increase impact, right? But one thing that I'm also hearing everyone touch upon, but I would love to go in specifically, is coming from something that we see in Digital Undivided's programs, where, we have founders who come to us and be like, I had this idea, but then I got into the cohort and, I didn't know how that other Black women could be entrepreneurs, because I don't know anyone else who is a Black woman entrepreneur, right? So from the program side, how can folks who are creating programs for these founders help them find community, help them learn how to leverage that community, especially when it comes to finding the confidence to pitch well or to overcome imposter syndrome? No, that's a lot, so I'll let it digest. Go for it.
It's definitely a lot to unpack. I'll say this. What I think is especially, I like that you said that you started, one of your examples was, I didn't know that there could be other Black entrepreneurs, Black women entrepreneurs doing this work. And I think I was probably guilty of that a few years ago, of thinking that there's such a small population of people doing great things, until I realized that the lessons that had been taught to me have been taught from the perspective of someone who may or may not, right, want to see the success of those who preceded me. So if I wanted to find those stories, then I had to increase my level of curiosity and go find those stories and filter them through a narrative that made sense to me. And I say that because VC, venture capital, angel investment, these are all new terms, but Black businesses are not new. Latinx businesses are not new. Minority, whatever that means here in America, they're not new. Businesses have been started for centuries. And so when we developed the curriculum for Black Upstart, it was important for us to go out there and actively find those stories. So Mary McCloy Bethune, she is best known for Bethune-Cookman University, but she was able to start a one-room schoolhouse and pay the rent by selling sweet potato pies to the mine workers down the street. That is crowdfunding. So people who are in the community were giving her money. She was turning her contacts into capital. We can turn it into contemporary examples instead of talking about Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. I mean, we look at kind of Issa Rae. She started in tech. And so, in fact, she started on a free platform, YouTube, and she was able to bootstrap her business with the salary that she earned from her 9-to-5 and produce one episode before getting Pharrell, or one season before getting Pharrell to back season 2. I think we have to actively figure out what those stories are, but most importantly, we have to study the journey. What was unique about their journey that got them to the point of profitability where they could sustain themselves and employ other people? I think the next thing that we have to be intentional about in our programs is realizing that our capital is powerful. Black people spend $1.3 trillion annually, but we usually spend that money making every other community rich but our own, because we have not studied the industries that we purchase from. So when I think about Maven, a tech company that provides extensions, I mean, that's a Black-owned company. And what he did was take the products that Black women were already buying and create an infrastructure and a company for them to benefit, not only for themselves, but also for him to grow his impact as an entrepreneur. So I think that those two things are, again, especially important as we think through programming and being intentional.
That's awesome. And Andrea, to your more personal journey, we often also hear our Latinx founders say that they don't know anyone else who is an entrepreneur like them, and they are the first for their community. So how does that resonate with you, either personally in your own entrepreneurial journey or also in your work at Techstars?
Yeah. No, I mean, one is like, it makes me sad, right? Like it's one of those things that, at least for me, like I said earlier, like I didn't realize it until I was kind of out of that world and looked back at what I accomplished and realized, like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I was one of the first. And then so now I personally make it, it's one of my own personal missions to talk to other Latinas and other women of color. If nothing else, to see that I, quote unquote, didn't have the background to do what I did, and I did it anyways. And I go to schools as often as I can. Like I volunteer as often as I can. I think it's really, really important. And I think that the three of us are already doing this, of taking advantage of the platforms that we've been given to actually act as those mentors and act as those people to inspire the next generation. So that's something that I personally do, and aspire to continue to do and kind of pass it on. And one of the things that I've always said is knowledge is way too powerful to keep to yourself. And I will be the first one to admit the mistakes that we made so that you don't make new ones, right? Like, don't make the mistakes that we did. Like, how can we really learn from each other and build on that and continue to be stronger and be more confident together. So that's at least one thing on that side. And then, as it relates to Techstars, like I know the part of what's really fascinating for me is Techstars is so global. We actually have a lot of programs that are outside of the US. And when you look at diversity and when you look at inequalities that exist in every other country, they're different, right? Like, we look at diversity very different than we do here. And so that's been really fascinating when I'm talking to, founders that are actually living in Latin America, or that are living in Africa, or that are living in the APAC region. Like, there are just so many different kinds of entrepreneurs. And I think there's kind of, like we were saying earlier, there's different narratives, and it's how do we continue to elevate those? And so part of what I do at Techstars is really lead a lot of our work that goes into our marketing efforts. So if anyone's interested and wants to, let's work together to kind of elevate those voices. And I think Techstars has that global platform, and for us not to do that is to, it's really our responsibility as an organization that's incubating a ton of companies a year, to be able to leverage that platform on behalf of others. And that's really what I take a lot of pride in too.
Would it be okay for me to add to this? Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I have two different thoughts on when it comes to programming. So on one side of things, I feel like if you're going to create a program for women of color, Black and Latinx women, I think you need to, one, treat it like a business. Like, you need to, of course, it starts with you. You want to help probably because of something that you went through, but then do the customer discovery. I know even with Digital Undivided, as an alumni, I've been sent so many different emails and surveys of just getting feedback. And I think if you approach it from the sense of like, we're a company, we're building a company alongside you, and you're basically our customer, I think taking that approach just helps on both sides. Also, specifically for our demographic, considering the full person, not just the company. One of the most helpful things at Digital Undivided was, I believe there was a therapist that came in and just talked about the weight that we were carrying. Because a lot of Black women and Latin women, we have our families, like not just like if we have children, but we have mothers whose bills need to be paid. We have, there's like a whole bunch to where we feel that social responsibility to where maybe a white man doesn't feel that same social responsibility. So thinking about what it looks like to not like to get past potentially scarcity mindset, getting past some of the limiting beliefs and traumas that you've carried from generation to generation, like actually talking about those and acknowledging those on the journey is so important. And then on the other side, if you're someone who's in the audience that's thinking about starting a program but aren't sure where to start, I suggest being a mentor first at another program. I'm not sure of the layout of the Black Upstart, but like if I were to want to like do that, I would.
Yes, we were looking for mentors always.
Yeah, and like I think being able to like even just like humble yourself and your ego and just like being a part of something that's already great and learning from that, like that's just as important. Like you don't need to like carve out something if you align with something already so well. So I just want to put that out there.
I love that. Yeah, that's good. I love that.
Yeah, I love that as well. And that actually is a good segue. Unfortunately, we only have about a minute and a half left. So Kezia and Andrea, what words would you like to leave our founders?
I think we have to go first.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot. One, like, reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to put my email or LinkedIn or however you want to connect with me. I'm just here to help. One, but two, I think it's so important to really take what you believe that you can do and just go out, not just go out and do it, because I realize that there's a lot of help that you need, but just because you don't know something does not mean that you're not capable of it. I think Bea was saying this earlier, right? Like I didn't know what a cap table was. Like I had to Google it, and our first term sheet was branded and pretty, kind of like how Legally Blonde did in her movie. Like we just didn't know what to do. And so like, one, like start. Two, if you have questions, like I know I'm here. I'm sure a lot of these other panelists are here to help. And if you don't know something, don't let that be what blocks you from proceeding and actually exploring and being curious to what that could lead to.
Yeah, and I would say, I think that's really good. I would say my parting words are just really reflection of what Bea said and Andrea said to a certain extent, and that is rising tides lift all boats. And I think when people think about that particular quote, they think about the boat. They think about, is my boat bigger than the next boat? Is the next boat smaller than my boat? I'm a mid-sized boat. Everybody's thinking about the boat and nobody's thinking about being the tide. What's great about the tide, right? Rising tides lift all boats, is that a tide is not one drip of water. It is a collective of drops coming together in order to make a mighty ocean. And that ocean as a collective lifts every single person who is on the tide. And I love what Bea said about being a mentor in another program, being able to rely on other people within the cohort. With Andrea, she's going back to the school and she's sharing her story so that people who look like her, people who have her lived experience, know that they don't have to live in isolation. Even with my own personal experience, I was just on a Zoom call with Lauren, so the CEO of Digital Undivided, just 2 weeks ago, and she was mentoring me through what I'm learning on my own journey as entrepreneurs. We have perhaps, programs serving similar demographics, but she still took time out of her program to be a tide to my boat. And so like, that's what I would leave the women, the people who are listening into this broadcast with.
All right, thank you. So for everyone who have asked about additional resources, we will have this session available for replay. So quick plug, join the community. We're offering 1 month free. Would love to see you there. But to our panelists, thank you so incredibly much for not only your words of wisdom that you've left out into the world and made it a better place already, but also your own personal journeys and who you are. So thank you very much. And it was absolutely my pleasure hosting y'all.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all. It's so nice to meet you too.
Bye, y'all.
Black and Latinx women have radically changed the world, innovating in every industry and creating pathways for generations of women behind them. Consider women of groundbreaking firsts. Born to enslaved parents, Maggie Walker chartered the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank, becoming the first woman to own a bank in the U.S. Ellen Ochoa, the first Latinx astronaut to travel space and to serve as the Johnson Space Center's director. Jane Boland, the first Black woman to graduate from Yale, pass the New York City bar exam, and serve as a U.S. judge. Do you know Mary Van Britten Brown? She invented the first home security system and secured a patent for it. And Dolores Huerta, co-founder of the National Farm Workers Association and the first Latina induced into the National Women's Hall of Fame. What about Diane Nash, an unsung hero of the civil rights movement? She co-founded the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Digital Undivided's Project Diane report is named for her and inspired by her work. Each of these trailblazers created lasting legacies, but the work to make innovation more inclusive isn't done. At Digital Undivided, our mission is to empower Black and Latinx women to catalyze their genius. Help us to create a world where all women own their work.
Hey, so I hope you enjoyed our last session. I want to take a moment to thank all of you for supporting our mission with your time today. I also want to encourage you to become a financial supporter of Digital Undivided. With your generous donations, our team is able to really empower and amplify the mission of Digital Undivided. We want to create systems change by catalyzing economic growth for Black and Latinx communities through women entrepreneurs. So go ahead and head to digitalundivided.com/donate to show your support. All right, so let's get into our next discussion. So there's no such thing as failure in entrepreneurship. In fact, every peak and every pitfall graces entrepreneurs with the lessons, insight, and skill set they need to conquer their next venture. So between the next two fireside chats, we're going to talk with two incredible women, Zuhaira Scott Washington and Nicole Sanchez. We want to discuss turning your failures into successes and the pathways that Digital Undivided creates to take you there. So first up, we have Zuhaira Scott Washington, who is a Digital Undivided program alumni. She had a failed startup and is now a successful tech leader. As an early executive at Uber, she led the successful launches of UberX, Uber Pool, and Uber Eats. And she grew the core business to a $1 billion run rate. She's now the SVP and Global Head of Strategic Partners for Lodging and Vacation Rentals at Expedia Group. Expedia Group is a $17 billion publicly traded global travel technology company. And so we're going to talk with Zuhaira first about what it means to fail up. And moderating this conversation is our very own CEO, Lauren Milan. Excited for this conversation, and I hope you enjoy.
Hi. Hey! You know I love seeing you all the time. I need you in real life. I'm gonna have to settle.
We need to catch up. We need to meeting like this, Lauren.
Keep running into each other like this online. You're just so amazing. You know how much you mean to me, and I'm so excited to have you back.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm glad it worked out.
Yes, me too. Me too. And I know I have to be mindful of the time because I could just stay here with you forever. So,
well, we need to do that in person. Or figure it out.
I know. All right. So I don't know where to begin. Let me start by introducing our audience to you. So I'm so thrilled to be able to bring back, for those of you who don't know, just a little bit of context. I am CEO of Digital Undivided in June. Was a different path for me in this moment in time, but one that I felt so compelled to stand up to. And as I thought about what we were going through in our country, in our society, the problems that we were up against, and the opportunity that was ahead for this organization, I remembered women like Zoraya. I remembered just how influential this organization has been in the lives of women who go on to do big, bold things that maybe are also unexpected for them. And so in thinking about that, I was thrilled to be able to ask you as my friend now. We've become friends from meeting on that stage 8 years ago at Focus 100, or 9 years ago when Digital Undivided was just starting.
Something around that.
And you had, who's counting? But I'm so grateful that I met you and that I met you in that way, because one of my greatest joys is to have been able to see your transformation as well. And we've all transformed and evolved in so many ways. But when I think back to when I met you, it was on the Digital Undivided stage, pitching your startup at the time, pitching Canoodle. And I'll never forget it because that pitch was just like
it was all nerves. And I can't let you tell the story without me butting in, because you were like this fly, tall, lean, flowing angel investor who came in and was like, who is this phenomenal woman coming in? Knew your numbers. I think you were, starting your own venture fund at that time. And so the feeling was definitely mutual. If anything, I was in admiration. I agree. It's great to see, us to continue to have opportunities to come together and support each other.
Amen. Amen. And here we are. But you were an incredible founder. And I want to talk about that today as we talk about what it means to fail up, right? Because we often think that if something doesn't go as planned for us in life. And yes, we're here to talk about startups, but I think that the lesson is essential for us in life because there's so many things we all want to do. Nobody wants to start something and not succeed, but I think that there are silver linings in some of these learning lessons, and you were one of the best examples because you went from Canoodle, which you won the pitch competition. Your pitch, you crushed it. You were venture backed. You were living in Dubai at the time and creating this presence in the U.S. And then you went on to go do incredible things and become general manager of Uber in DC back in 2013, launching Uber Eats, Uber Pool, Uber X, running $1 billion business. So clearly that startup failure did not stop you. So let's talk about that, because now you've gone on to do the next thing, right? After having gone to Uber, you're now at Expedia serving as an SVP of, I don't know, the title is so long. I actually have to, let me see. I don't want to mess it up. And the other day I was talking to Z and she's like, oh, I have an expanded role. And I'm like, of course you do, darling. So let me get it right. SVP and global head of strategic partners, lodging and vacation rentals for the Expedia group. And you're a mom and you're a wife and you're an inspiration. So again, that startup failure did not stop you. But as a wonderful businesswoman, you clearly knew when to hit stop on that venture. And I want to ask you, what made you know that was the end of that particular venture?
Well, thanks for having me. And you know me well enough to know that positional authority is, it's part of the story, but especially in communications like this and intimate conversations within community, it's really important for me to tell the story behind the story. So I'm going to give that to you because most people get the LinkedIn version. I want, especially for the folks in the room who feel like, whoa, that was a lot, for them to also to relate to the real story. So I started a company, Canoodle. It was in the relationship space. I remember the time there was another startup, I won't name them, but they were better funded. And I remember checking their website and oh God, is my company going to succeed? They seem to have more traction. And I think it's important to understand the root of why I started the company. It was because I was raised by a single mother. I had met the love of my life and I didn't want to screw it up. And I felt like I had no good models for how to have a successful relationship. So like the nerd I am, I read every book I could find around what makes relationships successful. And at this time, it was, the time where tech was starting to solve, human problems. And I thought, well, wow, if you could have a dating app service, why not have a service to actually help you stay in your relationship? And I found profound meaning in that because of my own desire, candidly, to have, a life in which I could be with my life partner for, the test of time. I didn't want to screw it up. And so, surprisingly, that resonated with a lot of men and women. The reason that I knew over some time is probably threefold that it was time to run it down. Was one, capital. This was a time when I think now, every time is hard, but now there are a lot more examples of and a lot more momentum around funding founders of color. Like there's tons more programs, there's tons more support and incubators. I was just listening in on the prior panel, programs and the like. And for me, the funding, we never hit $1 million in funding. We ran out of runway. We had angel investors. We did get a venture capital firm to back us, but it wasn't enough runway to really compete in this big market and really chase the TAM. And so that was a reality that I had to face. Another pivotal point was we applied to Techstars New York. That was like a big push. And, we made it, we got the interview, I had a co-founder. That was like its whole other story I had to tell, to get. And then ultimately we didn't get in. And that was a really low point for me because I felt like, wow, I put all this time and effort. Meanwhile, we were getting all this press, and for founders in the room, there's the vanity metrics and then there's the real business metrics, right? So we were getting all the momentum from press because of the innovative idea and that it was a mobile app and, just the story behind it. But we couldn't get the capital to really fund the business to hit the next milestones that we wanted. And then lastly is the personal side, which I think we don't talk about enough. Lauren, I'm not even sure if we had this conversation. When I was in the piece of fundraising after Focus 100, I was pregnant at the time. And so it was a very challenging time for me because it was my first pregnancy. I actually was pregnant with multiples. Many people don't know that. I had a very difficult pregnancy, as women of color, are disproportionately do. I had to go into the hospital. I had medical challenges. And so that was a real wake-up call for me. And at that point, I had to make a decision primarily around, what I was going to do. And candidly, healthcare was a key issue, right? Having access to healthcare. I had Kaiser because that's what you could get as an entrepreneur, right? I remember I paid, almost $500 a month for just health insurance to make sure that, I had what I needed going into my pregnancy. And so there's I could tell you the lofty story, which I tell to, kind of, folks generally, but if you click down, multiple levels, there are various signals that said I needed to think about a less stressful and a more sustainable way to pursue my passion of building and growing businesses.
Wow. And I didn't know that piece. So I stop, and it makes me, and I don't want to get too personal in this moment, and this conversation is about you, but it reminds me of something we have talked about for many years now, which was, and I've talked about this with other girlfriends too, but that as women of color, sometimes we suffer in silence through what we're going through personally. And that for me, that was my divorce and becoming a single mom. And it was like, you might have seen me out there, how you met me with my new firm and, writing checks and making investments, having sold my first company. But, as you got to know me personally, you also knew what I was going through that I didn't want to share with other people. So thank you for sharing that with me. And thank you for sharing that with us, which is just a further testament to your strength and your resilience and your ongoing drive to say okay, I'm not done. I'm going to just take a different route. Mm-hmm. And so when we talk about taking that different route, walk us through what are the experiences from that failed startup that you think have made you such a stellar executive? And I know you were an executive before, you're not new to this. Mm-hmm. So you weren't like the founder who hadn't been in business. But, what are the things that you think really kind of fortified your skill sets to be able to ascend the way that you did at Uber? What, if anything, would you take from the Canoodle experience and say, this made me a better leader?
Well, as I reflected on, if I reflect on this question, if anything, it's made the experience running and building Canoodle made me more attractive to a company like Uber. You have to go back to the time, it was 2013. Uber was not a household name. So there's always an element of luck involved, right? Just timing and opportunity meeting preparation. But most companies want entrepreneurial individuals. They want people who come with ideas and actually have the will to push through to make them happen. And so the entrepreneurial DNA that I demonstrated in building this, wild, crazy idea, Canoodle, was welcome and was well received. And I also had confidence. I think that's another thing that it brought to me, which even though it was a failed company, I stuck my head out and I did it. There's a lot of people who talk about doing it. I actually did it. And it's so funny, a lot of this concept of failure is about, is really about feeling shame. Mm-hmm. And once I let go of the feeling of shame, I was free to really own what I had learned through that experience. And what I had done was I was a CEO. I took something from an idea to an actual freaking product in the Apple Store, right? 100% self-taught. I'm not a computer engineer, and to me that just further proved what I knew and what we all know all along. We are resilient. That is our superpower, right? Put something in front of me, I will get through it. It will happen, and that to me just further fortified. Even though it didn't result in the outcome that I wanted, it made me even more confident that I could actually deliver. And the obstacles that were actually in front of me, in terms of, fundraising or team building and the like, I had to just show myself that kindness, right? To kind of get over, give myself some time to kind of lick my wounds, but I didn't let it stop me. And I know at that time, when I was, interviewing for instance, this particular Uber job, GMs were essentially mini CEOs of their markets. And so there was no better, prerequisite or, resume, if you will, than having been a former founder. And to this day, that founder DNA lives within me, right? That's how I pursue my business. I think about it as a founder. No matter what the function is, I think about it as an owner, not a renter, right? And so I think it's really important that those elements of being entrepreneurial, to believe you can do something that others think is impossible, is a superpower. And it's something that I brought to Canoodle, and, taking it from idea to an actual product. And it's the same thing that I bring to the business, right? Day in and day out, right? You're consistently, the more, responsibility you get, et cetera, are going to be put in front of challenges and obstacles, which people will say there's no way that we can do this, or you'll be forced to think creatively about how to make something happen when the answer is not, apparent. And so I think all of those things I've taken with me, and I like to say also with a dose of optimism, because I am an optimist. I think all of that together is what has led me to have had outsized, I would say, success to date in my career.
I agree. And I don't know. I heard like a quick pause before optimist. I don't know if you were going to say eternal, but that's what it feels like. I've known you nearly 10 years.
Sometimes optimism works and sometimes it is. So that's another thing I've learned. It's like you have to be optimistic, but you also need to, know the reality. And so I've learned that as well throughout my career, being overly optimistic and then, having things not work out the way. So I think as I, mature over time, I take the optimism, but I also, fact check, right?
Trust but verify.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You've also had a chance, granted it was years ago now, in a different iteration of Digital Undivided. You've had an opportunity, though, to work within our programs, benefit from our programs. Like what did and again, we were in a different climate, right? Where there weren't so many other programs out there, or incubators or accelerators. There was not a big push for diversity in tech. There was not a big push for women. It was a very different ecosystem. But if you could talk a little bit about what your time within Digital Undivided did for you then, to even feel that confidence to keep going or go out on the fundraising trail. Like, what has it contributed to your entrepreneurial journey that we've now seen you so successfully transition?
Well, it was a huge, boost. To do a pitch competition and to actually, win a pitch competition. There's a lot that goes into that, and getting your story right and communicating that. There were some prominent angel investors in the room, and to be able to sit there and, say that like I accomplished that milestone, it helped me to continue to the next. And not only with, the experience in that room that day, that led to momentum from, a few articles to people saying, hey, you should go try out for this competition, and me feeling like, yeah, I should and I can. And I remember going to the next one, which was actually in DC, and people saying, oh, I remember her. She pitched at this other one, right? And so you feel like, hey, I kind of, I'm kind of figuring out what I'm doing here, and I know how the pieces fit together. But I would say the thing that has lasted the test of time has really been the individuals and the people, right, that I've met, because our lives and our careers are long, right? I wish that everyone that started a company could be successful, but the reality is, and the reality we don't talk about enough, is that most startups fail, right? Mm-hmm. That's just the reality. And so, but the people that you meet in that drive, and the individuals and that desire for better, and to believe in, what's not in front of us, to like create something better for the world, is usually part of people's core traits. And a lot of the individuals that I met in that program, I was actually speaking to Mandela the other day. We still, kind of have a connection. And even though we haven't talked for years, I'll see people either in press or otherwise, that connection is still there, because we remember that time when, we were all, in the trenches building our companies. And I think that's special. And so the community is another aspect that I think, builds upon it. And I'm a big believer that even in the rooms where you don't know, people are speaking your name, and you want them to be able to lift you up and to say, things that advance not only, their well-being, but yours as well. And so I think we created a special moment in that time. And I love seeing, all the different ways that people have manifested their dreams as a result of being part of the program.
Wow. and the connection is so key and so valuable. And as
because
authentic.
That's hard, right? Because, another thing that we don't really talk about is this concept of something that is really important to me is getting clear on the intention for why you want to build and why you want to grow and have something. It is very easy in these days to get, again, caught up in, the press or the vanity metrics and otherwise. But I do think in communities like the one that you run and build and have, are continue to grow, there's something authentic about that connection, right? You can't fake that. And that's what I think makes it so sustainable over time, is people know that people are there for the right reasons, and they want to see you win.
Yeah. Yes, always. And that's why I want to remind all of you who are watching, whether you're watching live or watching the replay, it can be scary to feel like you're not on the path to success, or to realize that something that you really, really want, that all the pieces just aren't coming together. But I think that these stories are the ones that remind us that there is success after failure, and we can call it failing up, we can call it whatever we want, but that there is power in these lessons. And so I know you touched on it a little bit, but in closing, I want to maybe ask a two-part question, which is, what does failing up mean to you? And how did you position your failure in even going to the Uber conversation? I know that, of course, you mentioned that, GMs were mini CEOs, but I think that for a lot of people listening, they're like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, I can be successful after I fail. But then you end up in those rooms, and you actually end up in those conversations, or maybe not in rooms now, but, on screens. And someone asks you, about that failure or about why that ended. And I think people don't often know what to say. So maybe just share with us, like, what does failing up mean for you? And how did you position that failure so that it led to a success? And we know that Uber wasn't the Uber we know it now back in 2013, but you got the job, and it was a big job.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. And how do you fail up? You fail up by being human is the answer. And if you're uncomfortable being human, that's another set of questions. But I think this concept of being infallible and not, and candidly having shame around that is where the work needs to be done. And so for me personally, I definitely had that feeling, right? Because no one, people like, hey, what happened to this thing? It sounds cool. I've never been asked in the times that I've talked about Canoodle about like, so maybe I've been asked like, what would you have done differently? But no one's ever approached me like, well, do you feel like a failure because your company didn't win? If anything, they say, wow, that's really cool. And I wish it existed. And wow, does anything else? They ask more questions around what led me and what drove me and how they think those lessons can be applied to what I'm doing now. I've never been put in a position where I've been made to feel like the failure was something I should be ashamed of. If anything, it's been positioned as a strength and as an asset to where I go. And so I think the work that I had to do for that to feel that way was internal work. It wasn't external work. It wasn't about a narrative that I had to share with someone else. It was really about getting it and feeling right in myself and not feeling the shame associated with it. And with that just comes over time. Over time, you say it enough, and, it's easier to say the next time, it's easier to say when you say, yeah, I gave it my best and, it didn't work out. And here are the three things I would think about differently. I definitely think it's important to reflect and have an answer on that because you invest your time, your effort over the years. But I don't think the burden of shame is one that entrepreneurs should own. And if they do, that's okay too. That's human. And I think actually more companies and more employers are looking for that humanity, right? People want to be around people who are vulnerable, who are human, who can own it, not just kind of sweep it away, but actually own it and talk about it. And so that's what I would say for me is feeling up. It is, leaning into the human emotion that comes with not succeeding, understanding it, and pushing forward.
Yeah. So is it fair to say that you are encouraging those in the audience who feel like they're on the brink of failing with their startup or who worry about what might come next. Because there's always, for those that are fundraising, especially, I've heard a lot of women that are like fundraising right now, or that they plan to fundraise through COVID, who have this trepidation of like, I'm going to keep pushing, but maybe, we don't have the runway because of what's going on. So is your suggestion to encourage women who think that they are on the brink of failure to always look for the learning lessons and just be prepared to share those learning lessons with confidence?
I think that's part of it, but no one can be in your shoes. So, the women who run their businesses know their businesses better than I can ever opine on this. And as you know, there's several reasons for a company not being successful. So I think first is just getting clarity, right? And having the right crew or advisors around you so you can get that clarity to understand, right, if it is a systemic issue or something you should push through. But I would say if you come to the conclusion that, hey, this isn't going to work, or it's time to, time out or to pivot, I would encourage them to push through the feeling of shame, not to not feel it because that's human, but to push through that feeling of shame and to own it, right? And to make that experience, make them stronger. And I don't mean to say that like it's, flip and it's, you go A to Z, but it's a process. And I think once you're on the other side of it, that is something no one can ever take from you. No one can take my journey from me. And that's what makes me special and unique. And so I would just say, look for those elements and the aspects that you can own your narrative in that, and push through.
I love it. Thank you. Push through. There's light at the end of the tunnel. There are titles to be had and ways to succeed. And thank you for showing us the many ways that we can all do that, and that we can look to still chase our dreams and know that regardless of the outcome, that we can still keep winning. So thank you again for joining us. And it's been such a pleasure, a true joy to just watch you keep rising. And I know there is so much more to come from you as we have our side chats and, we're on to the next thing. I'm looking at those board seats, and it always continues. And there's always, we're still having that board seat conversation. So that's like the next Undivided We Rise. We'll talk about getting our women of color in these corporate boards, but the work continues. The success is there. Thank you for showing us how we can rebound from those experiences so gracefully and successfully. I'm just so thrilled to have been able to have you here today. And thank you again for making the time.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so let's get into our next session. We just heard an amazing fireside chat with Zuhaira Scott Washington, SVP at Expedia. She started out Digital Undivided alumna and has risen through the ranks in corporate and has been able to turn a failed startup into a success for her full-time career. And so now we're going to hear from Nicole Sanchez, who currently serves as Managing Director at Chase on the Financial Health and Inclusion team. And she's also an alumnus of Digital Undivided programming. And she's going to talk more about this idea of failing up and using any failures that you have in entrepreneurship to propel you forward in your career. So a little bit about Nicole. She was a general manager of the youth and student segments at Chase prior to taking on this new role. In this role, her responsibilities included developing and driving Chase's strategy to win the next generation of consumers. Specifically, she served as both the business owner and head of product for key youth and student products, leading a 100-person cross-functional team across technology, digital product, marketing, just the whole gamut. Prior to that, Nicole served as an investment partner at X Factor Ventures, a venture capital fund where she led fintech investments. She's been named one of the most powerful women in NYC tech. And she's also the founder and CEO of Chase and Y Combinator-backed fintech startup Credit Hero. Nicole is a graduate of Harvard Business School, Harvard College, and a Y Combinator Fellow. She's been featured in Forbes, TechCrunch, PitchBook, and so many more. And most importantly, she's an alumnus of Digital Undivided and a former Focus Fellow. Can't wait to get into this conversation. Welcome to the stage, our CEO, Lauren Milan, and Nicole Sanchez.
Hi. Nicole, are you there? Hey, how are you? Nicole, can you hear me? Nicole, can you hear me?
Can't hear you.
Okay, I'm here. You can't hear me? I hear you, though.
Hear you.
I hear you. Do you want to disconnect your headphones? I hear you.
I'm not hearing you. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
I hear you. Can you hear me now?
But I cannot hear.
Oh, no.
I cannot hear Lauren. What's going on?
I hear you. Let's see. Hold on a second here. Oh, I think they're recommending that you leave and come back in, maybe? I'm not sure. Just bear with us just a moment as Nicole gets all logged in. I think she's going to come back, but I'm so excited. Well, of course she's going to come back. But I'm so excited to have you all here and to introduce you to Nicole Sanchez in just a second when she comes back to join us. Again, I'm just going to... Oh, wait, are you there? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? No? Yes? Uh-oh, Nicole, can you hear me? Hello. All right, so Nicole's getting her audio together. And I want to tell you all a little bit about these two conversations while we are waiting. Nicole,
Lauren,
are you good?
Can you hear me?
Good? No?
So weird. I can't hear
so
you,
Nicole's
but
gonna
listen,
come
your
back
team
in,
has equipped me to and
I guess
has
in
equipped
just a
me to
second.
speak. And so do you want me to I literally can't hear you.
Trying to figure out her audio. But
I don't know. I can hear the other version. So if you want me to, I can kind
Zahara
of
and Nicole to be able
I heard
to
all of the
talk
questions
about
that you
their
just asked,
experiences,
Zahara.
having
Still
gone
can't hear you.
through Digital Undivided before and seeing how they have transformed and transitioned those experiences into new successes in different ways. Maybe not as a founder, but both of them are now incredible executives. And as I look at the women coming through our programs and who we support with our services and who are in our community, I see so much of that fear. I see so much of the fear of, oh my gosh, am I going to succeed at this? And so many of us don't even start because we are afraid of the potential of failure. And as I was talking to both Zahara and Nicole, this idea came up around failing up, right? Like, let's just redefine failure altogether. And I think for a long time, people have talked about, how do you redefine failure? What does it mean? What does it look like? Are you back? Does it work? Oh no. I can't hear you. I heard you before, though. Can you check the audio source? Check your audio source on your end or your microphone source. I can't hear you anymore. I was hearing you before. So let's see. In any event, I'm going to just keep talking until Nicole's audio gets fixed. How about just I'm not hearing you. I think everyone in the audience is hearing me, though.
Hear me? What about
yes,
now?
yes. What happened? You're here.
Yes, you can hear me?
Yes. What happened?
Let's do this. Can you guys?
Yes, I hear you. It's great. Can you hear me?
Okay. Oh my God, finally. And I will just say this team has been so incredibly diligent with a whole tech run that we did yesterday. And so I apologize if anything changed. I will also say I have a toddler who turns 2 today. Literally today is his 2-year birthday. And he has a very fun habit of coming in and completely wreaking havoc on my computer. So we'll blame it on him. In honor of everything we're doing today. But it's so lovely to see you and also to get a little bit of Zahara's thoughts as I was in the waiting room earlier.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming back. I was trying to fill the space as you were figuring out the audio with some backstory, which I probably you might not have heard with the audio issues, but I was just saying a little bit about how we met before, also in the early days of Digital Undivided. And so I'm so excited to be able to introduce you to our audience online and the audience in the replays as we talk about failing up. And I just loved our conversation the other day, Nicole. And I'm going to take it a step back. Sorry, I'm just jumping right in. Let me tee you up. This is Nicole Sanchez. Nicole, I met first also on stage at a Digital Undivided event that I was a part of early on, 2011, 2012. I do not remember now, but what I will never forget is Nicole on that stage, the same way that Zahara took was such an awe-inspiring pitch as well. And for me, especially now as CEO, to be able to look back at how I've met some of these women and to see where they are now and how their ideas and their innovations have continued to drive every step of their career has been incredible. And so the other day, Nicole and I were chatting and talking about me being in this role, which is new for me. Talked about her and her new role at Chase, JP Morgan Chase, as a managing director. Congratulations on Thashonda Duckett's team. I mean, hello. With just incredible experiences to be able to remind founders and innovators in our community, especially at this time, that while you might think in a moment that the failure that you're experiencing is the worst thing that could ever happen to your career or your startup, so I'm sure we disappoint our families and everything else, that there is success to be had. And so when you kind of coin that failing up, and I'm just loving that. And so tell us, how on earth can we go from, and I will say, if I may, you've had a couple of startups.
Yeah,
and you had a few that were built within DID or with, that kind of help and support of the community and the programs. And every time, the ideas were amazing, right? Just because we don't succeed as the startup doesn't mean that the idea wasn't good, doesn't mean even sometimes that the execution wasn't good. Sometimes it's the market, sometimes it's a variety of other things. But I've seen you with so many iterations, and every time that fire is there. Like, you show up and it is just like, boom. It's like how I imagine you walking into the JP Morgan Chase conference room if Jamie Dimon were to call you to a meeting. Like, that's just how you showed up for every pitch, even if it was just a test pitch. That was the seriousness that you took every venture that you ever created. And so I can only imagine how that manifests itself now in the corporate world to lead to more success for you. But talk to us a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur and tell the audience a little bit about the startups that you did start prior.
Yeah, totally. Oh gosh. So I think one, it's a journey is the right way to tell it. And I also think one of the reasons why, when you asked me to speak, I wanted to explicitly talk about this. And why I said, I want to talk about failing up, is because I think we as a community, to be honest, have normalized survival behavior to the extent that our best people are only told that the only way we can show up is excellence. And excellence as a frame almost is the opposite of failure, right? And so what I want to talk about is, for all of those really high achieving people, but who carry the weight of being Black, being a woman, and being Latina, of having families and communities that depend on us and look at us to consistently represent excellence, that we need to reframe what excellence means. And I think excellence means a few things. I think initially, the real inspiration for me to become an entrepreneur, I had never even thought of that. I never, in my mind, ever thought of me being an entrepreneur, specifically in a tech company. That never was my frame. But I do remember that, I went to Harvard Business School, blah, 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 blah. And a friend of mine, she was leaving her consulting job to go work for Twitter. And so my real insight initially was wow, I never even thought of that as a good idea. by the way. And she is now, if not, she's one of the most senior Black people now at Google. So she's just crushing the game. But Erin Teague was just a great friend and the godmother of my 2-year-old. But I remember Erin, and I remember we shared, because at the time she was at Bridgeman, so she was the consulting firm. We were roommates. Like one year I was at Bain, and she was like, I'm really Bridge. I'm like, are you sure that's a good idea? Like, isn't that risky? And so my first thought was like, I could never take that kind of risk, right? But she inspired me to think about going into tech. And so my initial instinct was that I was going to go to, I went to South by Southwest, and I was going to get a job in tech. Like that was my instinct. That was my frame. That was the risk level I was comfortable with. And so I was going to leave my good job to go do something in tech, because that was like really how I was going to affect change in my community, make money, accelerate, blah, 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 build wealth. Well, first step is I decided to go to South by Southwest the week before South by Southwest. Okay. So like, I didn't even know what South by Southwest was there, but I'm in this thing, figuring it out. And I'm at an event, and there are 2 Black women, one with huge hair, and they have this shirt that says like sparkly. And I remember this question when I didn't even know Catherine Finney. I knew her for 5 minutes. And she said to me, she was like, why are you here? And I said, so I can get a job in tech. She said, why don't you build a company? And
then you kept building.
And then you keep building, right? And so eventually you convince yourself, like, it's the prompts. So what I would say here are the prompts for me, and what's kept me honest and kept me motivated as I think about my journey, is to every once in a while, and maybe make it cyclically, maybe do it once a year as you think about your year, but like have a gut check with yourself about what it is that you want to do, why you want to do it, and how you want to feel. And then separately, I would say, have a list of like the 5 things that are most important to you. And I do this personally. Like I did this when I was looking for my husband because my pastor came up with this framework, like put the 5 things that are most important to you. By the way, that keeps you honest when things do not always go well. And I do it professionally about what are the things that, and I love my husband. I have to look at my 5. I'm like, he has the 5. He might not have the 10, right? But he has 5. And then I look professionally in the same way. Like, am I looking right? And sometimes I would say those 5 don't typically change, but sometimes the priorities of those change, right? Mm-hmm. Like you might say right now it's about making impact. Right now, other times you might say right now it's about money. Sometimes you say it's about work-life balance. Sometimes you think it's about intellectual rigor. So my point is you have to have a North Star experience of how you check in. But I do remember that was one of those moments where when she asked me, I realized that one had never imagined it. And when I did the gut check, I realized this was going to be the time in my career where, and I had advisors who advised me, where this was going to be like my moment to take that risk. And to your point, like, and I think this relates to how Digital Undivided came in. One, Digital Undivided was the reason why I thought about it. A lot of times our communities don't have examples. And so if someone doesn't ask you who looks like you just don't even realize it's a possibility. Number 2, it helped prepare me. So, I made the decision to leave my job. What I did not have the full clarity was like how I was going to win in this space. And participating in the Focus Fellow program, it wasn't just about the pitch because, I feel comfortable in stage pitching. What it was, though, was helping me reframe from a traditional consulting mindset where we have huge, mature ideas and data sets and all those things to really getting crisp about what a VC needs. And that's about telling the story in a clear way of the problem you want to solve, about how big the market is, the solution you want to build, and ultimately why you are the person to build that solution. And so I think having that experience where like people got me, not, as this super talented, bright, well-educated, great background, but just truly new to tech, helping me understand how to tell that story was so critical to my success. And then I think to Zahara's point, getting the right relationships, the right exposure to other people. But for me, if you think about the continued rigor, the reason why I was able to come in strong and with gusto is sometimes I was building things for the wrong reasons, right? The first idea was a really personal idea, but I ultimately realized the market it was not structured in that way. It was really going to be structured towards healthcare, and you needed to have a true medical bend. And there were companies that raised $30 million after me, and they still failed. So it wasn't a funding issue. It was actually a structural issue about how the market worked.
It was a brilliant idea. Tender caring. I think I told you when we were on the phone, I have all the email addresses still in your contact in my phone of every company you've had.
All the companies. The second one, it was so interesting. Like, I knew the problem I thought I wanted to solve, and I knew how I wanted to solve it for. And we started Vixen, raised money for Vixen, all the things. But it really was like, it was solving Black women's problem. And we were working with hairstylists. And the view was like, if you bring this toolkit to market, you can sell extensions, but it really was based on the stylist relationship. And what I ultimately realized in that business is that the stylist didn't need me to source the hair. Like that market, there were tons of vendors that they could do. Customers, had enough people that they trusted, but the stylists ultimately were relying on was cash flow. They didn't have the credit. And I saw that over and over again, where these are people who just did not have the cash flow to manage their businesses. And so they were making a referral because they didn't have the money or the funding or the credit to hold the inventory themselves. And so that led me to build a fintech, of all things, to help women build and improve their credit scores. And you could have never predicted that journey. And yet we got such momentum that JP Morgan Chase invested. They were, my largest investor, along with Charlie O'Donnell of Brooklyn Bridge, who invested in Vixen. But they, JP Morgan invested in me because they had never seen someone do what we do as fast as we did it in such an impactful way. And we were, very well, very effective at driving outcomes. What was, to your point, what was tricky about that situation is at the time we were focused on low-income consumers, helping them improve credit, predominantly, which was women of color, which in today's environment could probably get a lot of money. But from a fundraising standpoint, the market was just that was not the market's headset. What was interesting though, JP Morgan was very excited about everything we had done and wanted to do even more for financial health. And at that time I joined 2GM, a role on the student and youth side, and ultimately led a team of 100 people. And now I'm a managing director on the financial health team and have an even broader mandate. So my point is, I speak to financial, to Failing Up, and I speak about the experience because one, you're not going to know how it's going to happen. You need to gut check yourself on what's working, what's not. You need to know why you're doing it. And when you're not doing it for the right reasons, you need to stop. And, one of the best muscles that I built over time was my ability to manage uncertainty. I think that was, one of the hugest takeaways of the experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting. I wasn't planning to ask this, but you know me, I don't plan conversations. I just keep talking. But something that I'm realizing in listening to you on the heels of having had my conversation with Zahara, while even thinking about myself, and back when I met both of you, I was angel investing. I was one of the only women writing checks. I was starting Gen Y Capital Partners, and it's interesting. Can you hear me? Oh, I hope you hear me. Can you hear me? I hope so. Nicole, can you hear me?
It's a little bit lagging, but continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But what I'm realizing, I guess I knew this, but what's interesting and what I'm hearing as the recurring theme.
I missed it.
Uh-oh. Are you there?
The interim. I'm not sure if I'm still live. If I am, and I apologize for the technical challenges.
You are live.
If I am live, what I would say, really heard the question, is just, courage, and building, courage is so critical, and it's not easy, but I think our community is built for courage, in terms of resiliency and to do things as we proceed. And I also think I just had, frankly, a husband who carried through. And I think having, whether it's a formal partner or really transparent with, is going to be really important because it's a journey. It's very challenging to mental health. And I think now I can hear you. Did you hear me?
Yeah. I don't know. It's choppy. I hear you, but I don't see your video rolling.
Okay. Let's try it again.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Nicole. Are you there? Can you hear me? All right. Well, what I was going to say, I'm still going to say it, and I hope that you and the audience can hear me. I think Nicole's having some tech challenges on her side. Is that what's interesting and the recurring theme is that sometimes we're also just too early in our businesses. I'm here.
Hear me?
We lost Nicole. Okay, so let's hope that maybe she pops back in. But what I want to share with you all is that while we're talking about failing up right now, and we've listened to two incredible success stories that have gone from their own personal failure with their startups to landing incredible executive positions that still place them in a leadership capacity within an innovative space, is that sometimes we are also too early with our ideas, and that doesn't mean that we fail. So if you have been with us now for the last 45 minutes or so, you heard Zahara talk about her startup Canoodle that she pitched at Digital Undivided about 8 years ago when I met her on stage. And she even said then in our conversation today, oh my gosh, if I had Canoodle now as a relationship app, imagine it would be probably really easy to raise money for it, because there's also this increased emphasis on women of color as founders and as innovators. And then the same thing with Nicole. Nicole just said, oh, well, that about that my last startup where I failed that JP Morgan invested in, which allowed them to see her and her turnaround abilities, how she dealt with the failure, how she closed up the company, and ultimately landed her a role. And now she has ascended in the last 2 years to being made a managing director about 3 months ago. But you heard Nicole even say, if I had that credit company right now helping, low income women, those who are most of which women of color, fix their credit, it would be a very different startup right now with a very different funding landscape. So sometimes we're also too early. It's something that I even felt when I started Gen Y Capital Partners back in 2012. Super early to say that we were going to be entrepreneur-friendly capital, that we wanted to be in early, that we wanted to advise, that we wanted to also give you our human capital to help accelerate your chances of success. That is now a model that we see done by other people, but a model that, quite frankly, I championed with my partners when starting that company. And so never think that being early with your idea is a failure. Sometimes it is just that. Sometimes you're early, but if you can reposition those experiences in conversation to say, hey, I was really early in identifying this issue, and maybe we didn't succeed as much as we'd hoped, but I had this idea early on, you're able to share your own innovation in that way. You're able to share your own ingenuity in that way. And so I want to encourage all of you in the audience to just remember to reframe your experiences. Sometimes you're early. Great, talk to it. Sometimes there's learning lessons. Great, talk to them. But I think the great way to redefine this is to say that there is always a way to now fail up. And so thank you for joining us for this conversation. I'm so sorry that Nicole has had some tech challenges. I think she's not coming back on and is having some trouble. I've just gotten some signals here. So I want to thank you all for joining us, and stay tuned. Right now we will be into some incredible programming, and we still have a wonderful docuseries to share with you that has never before been seen. So please stay tuned for the premiere up next.
Okay, so let's get into our next session. We just heard an amazing fireside chat with Zahara Scott Washington, SVP at Expedia. She started out Digital Undivided alumna and has risen through the ranks in corporate and has been able to turn a failed startup into a success for her full-time career. And so now we're going to hear from Nicole Sanchez, who currently serves as Managing Director at Chase on the Financial Health and Inclusion team. And she's also an alumnus of Digital Undivided programming. And she's going to talk more about this idea of failing up and using any failures that you have in entrepreneurship to propel you forward in your career. So a little bit about Nicole. She was the general manager of the youth and student segments at Chase prior to taking on this new role. In this role, her responsibilities included developing and driving Chase's strategy to win the next generation of consumers. Specifically, she served as both the business owner and head of product for key youth and student products, leading a 100-person cross-functional team across technology, digital product, marketing, just the whole gamut. Prior to that, Nicole served as an investment partner at X Factor Ventures, a venture capital fund where she led fintech investments. She's been named one of the most powerful women in NYC tech. And she's also the founder and CEO of Chase and Y Combinator-backed fintech startup Credit Hero. Nicole is a graduate of Harvard Business School, Harvard College, and a Y Combinator Fellow. She's been featured in Forbes, TechCrunch, PitchBook, and so many more. And most importantly, she's an alumnus of Digital Undivided and a former Focus Fellow. Can't wait to get into this conversation. Welcome to the stage, our CEO, Lauren Milan, and Nicole Sanchez.
My name is Leslie Valdivia, and along with John Rosario, we're the founders of Vivid Cosmetics. We launched Vivid Cosmetics in 2017 when we noticed a big disconnect between the beauty industry and Latina and Latinx community. Although Latinas and Black women are the top consumers of color cosmetics, we felt there was no company or brand out there that truly represented and authentically represented our community, from founders, models, and everywhere in between. And therefore, Vivid Cosmetics is born. We created Vivid Cosmetics to celebrate all that we are: our culture, our different skin tones, our diversity, and beauty. Our story is much more than just about lipsticks, but celebrating the power of our community all year long. I'm proud to say that I am an alumnus of this year's 2020 START program for Digital Undivided. During my time in the program, I learned that so many women, Black women, Latina women, are going through it, building companies and doing their best, just like I am, and I didn't feel alone in the process. I gained so much from my experience at Digital Undivided, and I couldn't be more thankful. I'm a proud Latina, not just during Latinx Heritage Month, but all year round. And we created this brand so people can also feel proud to be Latina and for all that they are and where they come from every single day of the year. Remember, support indie, Latina, and Black-owned brands every single day next time you're shopping online or at the store. Thank you.
I'm super excited. Can you guys hear me? Yes. Awesome. My name is Ingrid Harb, and today we're going to talk about game-changing women in entrepreneurship. Yo soy Mexicana, and I live in the U.S. Now, so definitely I think we have a lot to talk about, because I definitely think that being an entrepreneur in the U.S. itself is like a whole nother game as a Latina, no? So today we have Melissa Gills, Aida Soto, and Bianca Kia. And I was told to introduce you guys, but I kind of want to hear it from you. So if we can introduce ourselves just for a quick 1 minute, like your elevator pitch. I'll start with my elevator pitch. I am an activist and entrepreneur. I started the Women Ambassadors Forum when I was 19 years old in partnership with a Harvard professor. And ever since 2015, we've hosted over 15 forums, got into 150 countries, started a marketing agency. And so it's been a lot of fun to be able to do this with a lot of Latinas too, because the team is made of Latinas. So I guess I'll pass the mic to Aida Soto, which I see you.
That's great. Thank you. So yes, my name is Aida Soto. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Simple Citizen. We started Simple Citizen 6 years ago. So when I went, I came from Mexico. I'm originally from Mexico as well. I came to the United States. I married my husband, and then I went through the immigration process myself, and it was very frustrating for me. So it's like, there needs to be a tool to help so many people going through the immigration process, because it's really a nightmare. It was for me. I didn't speak any English, so it's like I need to dedicate the next 10 years of my life trying to solve this and guide people that just like me went through this process. So that's what we do in Simple Citizen, try to help people be guided and like know that they will be doing this process right through a software tool, and that's what we do every day in Simple Citizen.
That's beautiful, Aida. And I saw that you've helped over 10,000 families go through this process. So kudos.
Yeah, I'm 40% Latinos or Spanish speakers, so I feel very, very proud that we are really helping our people.
Bianca.
No worries. Hi, guys. I'm Bianca. I'm the creator and founder of Yo Soy Afro Latina. It's a brand that highlights the people, the culture, and the experiences of Afro Latinas through our custom apparel and lifestyle merch. So I'm currently, residing in Houston, but this brand actually came about when I was living in New York. I always like to say we're from New York, but I personally am from Detroit. I am also a Mexicana, so it's nice to be around, family. So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Bianca. Melissa.
Hi, Melissa Giles, founder of Culture Strategy Group. Most of my career has been helping clients and brands engage with diverse, multicultural, millennial and Gen Z youth segments. Outside of that, I started a festival called Sofrito when I was in college. It exists today, and it's produced at the Barclays Center in New York, and also starting a new endeavor starting next year called Latina 100. I'm originally from Miami. My mother's from Venezuela. My father's from England, but I spent most of my life back and forth between Miami and New York, and I'm also a single mom to a 13-year-old boy.
So I want to start with a question for all of you. We know we're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, but what advice would you give any Latina that is starting a business and also that needs support?
Okay, you go ahead. I guess anyone can take that question. So the question was, what advice would we give to any Latina starting a business?
Yeah.
I would just start. Just start, figure it out, speak to as many people as you can. If you have an idea, start looking for mentors or advisors or people who already started doing things, and eventually you'll find your path in terms of how to get it going and how to get started.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. It's all about starting. I feel like a lot of people get caught up in the ideal or just brainstorming or, I don't know how to actually activate on this passion project. So I think the biggest thing is just putting it out there. It doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be excellent, but you have to put it out there so you can at least get feedback from your community. And I think one thing to note, speaking from experience, when I started my brand, I didn't necessarily, push it out there hoping that my friends or family would support. I just put it out there because it was a passion project. And, I knew that there had to be other Afro-Latinas like myself who could relate. And they just so happened to be my audience. So, you just have to keep in mind, be very intentional when you do put it out there and recognize that if you're putting a product out there, that doesn't mean that the product is for your family or friends, and that's okay. You're going to get the support, but your audience may be, Gen Z or millennials or whoever it may be, and they will come to you once you put it out there. But it's all about, the first step, and that you have to start at some point. So definitely agree with you.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Bianca. It's especially is born from your passion, something that is bothering you in your life, you find out this thing that is gonna allow you to sleep, or you're thinking about if there is a solution for that, how many people I will help, all the benefits that will bring to me and to the community. So if you start just focusing on that and studying about that, and Bianca says, no waiting for anything, that you need to have this business model all perfect. If not, you cannot go to business, or you need to start raising money before you even put the idea there. It's I would say, don't worry about anything of that. Just start getting mentors, getting ideas of what is the first steps, but just get excited and passion, because that will bring you to the next level all the time. You will figure out what is the next step to do it, or you will find the resources. If you are very passionate about it, you start researching, and people will get, and maybe it won't be that easy, but in Utah we have a great partners. The Utah entrepreneurship community is amazing in that aspect. You can ask questions to anybody, and they will respond, they will guide you, they will mentor you. So I would say no, don't be scared to just express your idea and start putting it out there, like Bianca said, because that's exactly what it is. Just put the idea out there, you will start getting feedback. What we did in Simple Series in the beginning was just okay, this is our idea where we want to create all the government forms you need for your immigration process. What do? We just went to schools to interview other students because they get married very young here. So they was like already getting married to foreign nationals, and they didn't know what to do with their immigration process. So it's like they start giving you feedback, you show them your idea or your pitch, and they give you more ideas. And I would say that's like kind of the key, just like to know your market, what is like what people really need. That will give you a lot of input in what is next. But if you don't put, like Bianca said, your idea out there, it's going to be hard. And I would say just no way to study these 3 years about it in order to start. Just like give the first step, and everything else will like come around.
That's such good advice. I'm going to add to that. I think, as we all know, it's like just not like there's no such thing as the perfect moment. And so just going for it, regardless of where you're at. If you don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel confident, there's 4 amazing entrepreneurs here. I'm considering myself too. 3 amazing entrepreneurs in this panel that I think could give all of us very insightful advice. So I'm going to go now to Bianca. So being Latinx is not a one size fits all. And so, you tackle the stigma through your platform, Yo Soy Afro Latina. So we often see and partake in conversations about, representation, but can you speak to the importance of representing the diversity of Latinx cultures and identities?
Yeah, 100%. So, for me, I didn't really understand just how diverse our culture was until I started, exploring and traveling and meeting other people, other Latinas of different ethnicities. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like you look like me, but you're Peruvian, or you're Mexicana, you're Puerto Rican, but like you have the same sort of, cultural upbringing or traditions that I have. That definitely took a lot of personal, just like venturing out into the world and exploring and being like, I'm going to educate myself on my culture, my community. Like I said, I'm from Detroit. Growing up, I love Detroit. I love our city, but it was a little, segregated in the sense that every community had their own pocket. So you had your Blacks, you had your whites, you had your Mexicans. And like I mentioned, my dad is Black American, my mom is Mexican American. So there wasn't a lot of fusion between the two cultures, but I also knew that like there's other Latinas who were out there and looked like me, like Celia Cruz. And I was like, she can't be the only other Afro-Latina. You know what I mean? I'm like, there has to be more. So, once I was like slowly exposed to her and other people as a child, I grew up and I left Detroit, I moved to New York, and that's when I was surrounded by so many Latinas with so many different backgrounds. So that was pretty cool. And then, like I mentioned, I started traveling, but like through that sort of exploration, it was just so empowering because, you turn on Telemundo, you turn on Univision, and you don't really see a lot of people that look like me. You don't see a lot of girls with fros and curly hairs and that can switch between Ebonics and Spanglish. You know what I mean? So like that in itself was kind of like, well, I know we're out there. I know that the community has been out there for decades and centuries because before, Africans were dropped off in North America, we reached Latin America first. Mexico and Brazil and Peru, there were slaves there before there were slaves in the U.S. So, I think it's really important that as Latinas, whether it be Afro-Latina or whatever you may be, Latinx, it's important that we educate ourselves and that we continue to bring awareness to just how diverse our community is. We come in all shapes and colors and sizes, and we have different languages. But unfortunately, because of mainstream media, we're only served so many, just so many pieces of our culture, when really we have such a deep, rich, culture. It may not be amazing because of how we came about to this country. There's a lot of, history that we kind of like to graze over and not talk about. But it's important that to me that I at least use my platform and my voice to educate not only myself, but, like I said, my community, my family, and hopefully I can be inspiring in some sort of role model to other Afro Latinos. Like I said, growing up, I felt so lonely because all I saw was Celia Cruz, and I'm like, she's amazing, but she's not my age. I can relate to her, but like I really can't. You know what I mean? So it's really important that we have representation because, like I said, we've been around for centuries and decades. So it's just like the fact that we're not on mainstream media is just kind of wild to me. But I do think it's beautiful that we have social media. So if Univision or Telemundo doesn't want to put that segment out there because of whatever reasons, we have our own platform to reach our own community and continue the education,
Absolutely. And that is, it's very impressive also because I think that's where activism comes from, right? Seeing something that's not right and doing something about it. And so definitely encourage everyone that's listening that if there's something you're feeling like it's not right, go ahead and find the people that are fighting for that cause, that are doing the thing, that are making sure everyone's visible. So thank you, Bianca. That was beautiful. I want to go now to Melissa. And I don't know how you've done this. This is amazing. Like you're going to have to have a separate conversation how you've been able to build this. But, you mentioned having, 3 organizations, which is your Culture Strategy Group, Latina 100 Summit, and the coveted Sol Frito Urban Latin Music Festival. So through all of these ventures, they share the commonality of amplifying and serving as a connector of the Latin culture, right? And so why was it important for you for your cultural identity to influence the work that you do?
So I started my first company in high school. It was a marketing promotions company. We did a lot of record label promotions, a lot of hip hop labels, Def Jam, Loud, Ruckus. I grew up in Miami, which is predominantly over 70% Hispanic, Latino, Latinx. And I was just already working in music and doing things. And I was approached by someone. Miami is also a very transient city. So a lot of people from other places who go to live there were not from there. And of course, everyone's like, Miami, it's Latino. And, it's the whole very kind of stereotypical about what you think about Miami. So someone, again, not of, Hispanic, Latino descent was like, why don't we do a Latin festival? And I was just like, why are you going to do another Latin festival for? There's a Colombian festival, there's a Puerto Rican festival, there's Calle Ocho in Miami, there's Puerto Ricans Day Parade in New York. Why do you want to do another Latin festival for? And there was nothing really speaking to the Latino youth, and in terms of second, third generation that were born and or raised here, that they grew up on more than just Latin music. They grew up on hip hop, R&B, reggae, dancehall, and other genres. But the more popular genres were hip hop, R&B. In terms of you go to major cities, those were kind of the driving music forces, and whether it's Miami, New York, or other markets. And I was like, why don't you do something that really speaks to the Latin youth, mixing these genres and catering to their diverse interests and musical tastes? I gave my spiel, not knowing what was going to happen. This person was like, I'll put up the money for the first show. And back then it was a very modest budget. This was when I was in college compared to what it costs to produce festivals today. And we had about 8,000 people in our first year. We had a lot of naysayers who said that'll never work, putting hip hop and Latin music on the same stage. A lot of people in the Latin music industry now, reggaeton, Latin trap is like a dominating force in Latin music, but a lot of well-known label execs were like, that'll never work. They said, esa música pa negro, that's not for us. And I was like, okay, the number one station in Miami is 99 Jams. It's hip hop, R&B, and majority of people who live here, over 70% or Latino, Hispanic. How are you going to tell me that's not going to work? So anyway, we did it. We've gone through our ups and downs with it, grown it. I now license the brand to one of the top independent promoters here in New York City that produces it. And I focus outside of that, back to your question, with Latina 100 Culture Strategy Group. My career kind of went parallel between doing marketing, brand strategy, started off in music, started working with brands who wanted to engage diverse multicultural youth segments. Again, majority of Miami is multicultural. So a lot of the audiences that we were speaking to or engaging were Hispanic, African-American, Caribbean. So that kind of was what led or kind of has shaped my path and my career. And really, to Bianca's point, there's not a lot of platforms out there. Univision, Telemundo doesn't do it, or they only do one side of it, where, again, Latin trap and reggaeton is a big part of the festival now. It wasn't around when we started the festival to begin with. And not everyone listens to that. So it's really understanding those complex nuances and idiosyncrasies of, millennial Gen Zs growing up, being born and raised in this country, and really what drives them, what are their passion points and their interests. And current platforms, at least the status quos, don't really speak to that.
I'm going to go now to Aide. So you were talking about, your journey in founding Simple Citizen and how it's helped, streamline the immigration process. Just tell us about how, funding a tech startup such as Simple Citizen allows you to support and advocate for Latinx people.
Yes, like I said in the beginning, it was more like this passion about that was born from my frustration with the process and everything that I lived through. That I say I just can imagine like people like me, like so many people from Mexico or Latin America, that like me, when I arrived here, I didn't speak any English, so I'm still struggling. But it was just like everything that I will find about government forms and everything that I need to do to get my green card and start finding a job. Like I couldn't do anything else. So it's like, okay, I will do it myself. So I took the challenge of doing it myself and researching through all these kind of different government websites and forums that everything was in English, not a clear answer of what to do. Where I found out that there needs to be something that really helps and serves people just like me, that they just arrived to the country, they want to feel like they arrived to a new home, and they find out that they cannot work. They find out like this messy immigration process to go through, and not the resources to be helped. And just like when you arrive, like so many immigrants, like and spending like $3,000 to pay an attorney to go through the process, is like it was like so many sides of it. That was like. And now, like, I feel proud that through Simple Citizen, we save money. We save like $3,000 in legal fees to each family member that goes through the process. And also time, like I took like almost 5 months between my non-English and just like everything that is really slow anyways. But it's like now they can fill out their applications in Simple Citizen in days or in 2 days, and then we offer immigration attorney review, so they don't feel like, oh, it's just this software and I don't know what it does, or it will fill out everything correct. So we just like really give peace of mind to people that uses the software, that is like ensuring them that we are actually doing it correctly and they won't have any trouble with their immigration. So we can try like so many different things. Like first thing is like hiring. I love to hire Latinx people. I feel like very proud of my roots, and for me, like somebody who comes and have the knowledge or like the skills to work with us, this is like for me, it's like there is no better candidate, because like you know that they will feel the same passion that you feel about this and to help others. So yeah, we try to hire like maybe 80% of our company is immigrants. We have immigrants from all over the world, like Nepal, Iran, Afghanistan, but like if like we have 2 Latinas. So yeah, that's like one thing that is like, okay, anybody that comes here and has the skills or can help us with something, we can help them too. Also, we try to reach the other communities, like the nonprofits or like Comunidades Latinas here in Utah, just like to reach out to them to see if we can help them with the software so they can help more people at the same time. So we try to help nonprofits, and also we try to launch programs that we know that are valuable. We did like a DACA program where it's like we are helping all these people that are currently in DACA status and they are renewing their DACA, so they don't have to pay an attorney to do it. They can go to Simple Citizen and we can help them. So we have like a lot of different little programs that we try to start so we can help the community. Also, we made a partnership with the Mexican consulate in Salt Lake City here in Utah. So we went there. We had a person going there every day to see if there were like cases or people that we can help through the software, so they don't need to reach out an attorney. I mean, the Mexican consulate, anyways, it's very helpful with people that they go and ask for advice, and so many times they sponsor them. So that's really, really nice that we can with that type of help in the United States when you feel like there's no resources. But I don't think that like so many people knows about all these resources that they're like to be helped, and they feel like they need to pay attorneys, they need to pay fees from the government, and there are really resources. So we are just trying to find all these like partnerships and ways to help people. And I have my hands full with Simple Citizen, working every day now from home, and two young kids. So I really would like to do more, like just like go out and research more about Latin communities and help more. But it's like anytime that I get invited to panels like these or interviews or to speak in high schools before COVID, I'm always happy to do it, because I know there is a way that maybe I can just help in a little bit, tiny bit, and getting involved will make like my eyes open to see new ways to help people. So yeah.
Thank you, Isa, for sharing that. And I think it's important. I love your story because it shows how like a bad experience can turn into a business, and how many times do we, as Latinas, have a bad experience through, a system that doesn't work or include us, right? And so for everyone listening, I think there's so many opportunities for us to make an impact, that being, like Ida said, through hiring, right? And having more, people that are immigrants hired. So this last question, we have 8 minutes left. I want to make sure that I get, all of your point of view on what you guys think the future of, the next generation of Latinx women entrepreneurs look like, but also what steps do we need to take to secure that future and make sure that there are other Latinx women becoming entrepreneurs? I don't know, whoever wants to start first.
I mean, that's a tough question. You said, what does the future look like? I mean, I could hope that the future looks like, more women entrepreneurs, more Black and brown women entrepreneurs. Like, that would be amazing to me to see that. Just because, like you mentioned, it sounds like all of us built a business at a time where either we didn't feel supported or represented, or, there was just a gap. There was something missing, and we wanted to solve that. And I think that's beautiful. So I really hope that that continues. And I think more importantly that, something that I want to do, and it sounds like all these other women want to do as well, is just mentor. Personally for me, I've had mentors along the way, but I haven't had like a steady one. And I think having a steady mentor to guide you and kind of mold you and provide you with feedback or whatever, just a different perspective, I think that could be really beneficial, especially from another Latina to, Latina to Latina. It would be really helpful to get that guidance because, you're able to relate, you're able to understand the cultural nuances and, just what's important to our community. And hopefully you're able to, come together, find a solution, and then pour back into that community. So hopefully there's just more of us at the top. That would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. We do need more Latinas at the top. You would be surprised, though. There are a lot of companies in the U.S. where the CEO or very few. Actually, I'm going to mention this stat because I didn't mention it. But they, we did a 2018 Project Diane report, and they found out that out of 6,791 startups led by women founders, was that 2% of them were Latinx women. So that is insane to think about. And so definitely, being able to bring more people at the top, that's going to mean that there are going to be more mentors. But I know, Melissa and Ida, I don't want to take away from your answer.
I guess to me, what the future of young Latina entrepreneurs or just leadership in general looks like is being unapologetically yourself, authentic, Latina, raw, unfiltered. A lot of what I see now in corporate America or in the media, it's very safe. And it's not allowing, not just from the diversity of how we look, but also just our stories and how we communicate and the things that we want to talk about. Everything is very, PC and safe. And I think the next wave of entrepreneurs, Millennial, Gen Z, they're just going to be unfiltered, and they're not going to care, and they're going to trailblaze their own path. And that's part of the reason why, we're launching Latina 100, is to recognize those young Latina, Millennial, and Gen Zs who are trailblazing their own paths, whether it's within a career at a company or whether they're doing their own thing. And I just think there needs to be more of that. My network on LinkedIn is very much in the ad industry and branding industry. And I hear a lot of the same stuff being they're all just speaking at each other, but really disconnected from the street and disconnected to the youth. So that's really what I would like to see more of, is authentic Latinas of how, the girl who you grew up with around the block, not the cookie cutter, by the book, went to college 4 years, maybe. And that's great if you did that. But there's so much more to be said about women who are just kind of creating their own paths. And I do believe the next generation, we're going to see more of that.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's very, very important what you say, Melissa. It's like I think like so many people, so many Latinas or maybe high schoolers, they put themselves, because maybe the society had putting us in this box where it's like Latinas, or no, like these kind of job positions, or like these opportunities are really for like other people, not you guys, or like, oh, you Latinas, you should have your babies and be in your house. Because I have received those comments myself, where it's like, oh, you have your baby, so now you're stopping from work, like now you are like dedicating your life to your kids. And I would love to, but I also have this other passion. So it's like, and I just think like, don't allow it to be categorized, or like feeling like you have all these like classifications that are obstacles for you to get to the thing. If you feel passionate about, you don't have to have a career, you don't have to have a doctorate, like a PhD or master's, like you can do it in any circumstance. It's just like taking the risk and really just forgetting about all these stereotypes and stuff. And there is like events like this that make people aware of that. So that's why I'm just like very honored to be hosted in this event, just because these are like the things that people need like out there, so they can figure out that are like other Latinas, like Bianca said, like there are Latinas just like me, and there are like people that is trying, and maybe it's a reality. Like maybe us as Latina, we need to try harder. We need to maybe hard work like super, like maybe double of other people will do, but like that is not something that is telling you that is impossible, because it's not impossible.
I do thank you, and I want to thank all of you for your experience, for what you shared. Just to wrap up, I think as key points, definitely just be you. I can't say that in English. I'm not going to try to say it. I've been speaking way too much Spanish lately. As we all know, switching from languages could definitely get in the way. But I definitely think also with the culture thing, like I feel it every day too. It is our responsibility and our generation's responsibility to educate the people that are, I don't want to say ignorant, but still believe in those strong, sexist, behaviors and roots. And so, we're here to educate, we're here to be us, and find people in your circle that are going to push you up, right? And are going to be there for you. And so, as Latinas, we were built to be strong. And so let's show we can be strong.
Yes. Love it.
Well, thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
And while we're here today in community and to talk about ways to grow, innovate, and build economic pathways for the future, I would be remiss to not ask that we take a moment of silence to honor the life and the legacy and the innovation, the promise of Breonna Taylor. Her life was cut far too short, far too soon, in a way that challenges the feeling of safety and security in all places of our life, and in a place where we should feel most safe, at home. I ask that we all stop and honor her legacy with a moment of silence. Wow, we did it. We did it. A second edition of Undivided We Rise, our virtual summit that I really hope you enjoyed as much as we enjoyed creating this space and experience for you. I hope that you've got notes. I hope that you are inspired, empowered. I hope that you feel a connection to us as an organization to be able to cheerlead for you, guide you, resource you, and connect you to the opportunities that you need to keep going and growing as an innovator and an entrepreneur. It is important that our work is supported, and I invite you, if you can, to support Digital Undivided by making a donation. Every little bit counts, every little bit helps, and as we look to create more ways to support more Black and Latinx women who are making these pivots and wanting to chart new ways for their own success and economic pathway forward. Your support and your support of your friends, your family, corporate matching programs, again, every little bit helps, especially when it's matched. It means so much to me as a leader of this organization and means so much to our entire team, who is in many ways also in the same seat as women of color grappling with the same issues in our daily lives, yet we come to work at Digital Undivided to create a better future for women of color every single day. Please join us in that fight. Please join us in making a contribution to our work. And also please join us in community. Please join us in our new online destination and join us in our programs. Our next cohort of START begins on October 23rd. Applications are open. I hope to see you there. I hope to see you in our inbox, in my inbox, in our digital community, online soon, and definitely back here again at our next edition of Undivided We Rise on January 15. Thank you again for joining me in the fight to create a world where all women own their work, which is what is important and critical so that we can all own our net worth. Thank you again, and see you soon.